Hello friends, and welcome to today's Sunday Tea Time live stream. Running a little bit late today. I postponed the stream by an hour just to give me time to get set up, because today is Father's Day here in the UK. So happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there, especially those in the UK, but wherever you're from. Please do come into the chat, let me know where you are from. Come say hello, let us know who's out there. I can see that Kronos is already out there, he's keen. Welcome to the stream, good to have you with us today. So I've spent this morning and early this afternoon doing a little bit of entertaining. My father-in-law came round today for Father's Day and we gave him a late breakfast, and we've not seen much of them for a while. So he came over with a mother-in-law and a few other people. So I've had a lovely morning doing that. So I'm a little bit, should we say, rushed in getting the stream together. So apologies for the mess, but it's good to be here at last after missing for last week's. And if you are new here, welcome to the streams. These are just a chance for me to do some drawing or animation in OpenToonz Autohoma, and for you to watch along and to ask any questions about what I'm doing or about OpenToonz Autohoma and how it works. So I'm just setting up a few things here on the screen while we're chatting. And I see we've got a few people here already, so let me nip through, pop the screen down and bring up the chat. There we go, let's turn this light back on so we can see. Good. Who have we got here today then? So we've got Kronos, as we say. Good to have you with us today. Maria, here as always, welcome, glad you joined us. Hopefully the chat on screen will catch up shortly. There we go. And Tom's doing art. Hello there, Tom. Good to have you with us today again. I'm not doing too bad, Maria. As I mentioned yesterday, I had my second COVID jab on Friday evening. And when I had the first one, I was streaming on the Sunday after. And I felt a bit rough on the Sunday, but then Monday I felt terrible and I had to take the day off work. It was horrendous. Just for the one day. Back to normal again on the Tuesday I was. So I wasn't sure how it'd be this time. But this time, totally symptom-free. There was nothing from it. Just a small bruised arm feeling. So that's it. 2 COVID jabs done. So I'm free, hopefully. Hopefully that'll get itself sorted. So yeah, I'm doing really well today, thank you. TCG. Try again. TCG. Hello there, welcome to the stream. Good to have you with us. Yes, happy solstice, it is. Yeah, someone told me that earlier on today. Mike Harvey, hello there, Mike. First time here. Well, you're welcome. I'm so pleased you're here. I guess you may have watched some of the videos over on the channel. Please do join me on the stream today. I've got a short but fun one coming through today. So what I plan to do today, either one or two topics I want to cover. The first one, as I mentioned in the title of the stream, is to continue working on BB8, who's sitting up here behind the screen. You'll see him in a short while. So I'll be working on him to finish off his small animation during these streams. And then I've also got another small drawing piece of work to do, again to use during these streams. And that should hopefully finish off the past few weeks' work I've been doing for building up backgrounds for the streams. So then we can work on another project in the following week. But we'll get to that as it comes up. English for fun, hello again. Long time no see, good to have you with us. Good question. Adobe Character Animator. I've only seen a little piece about it. Haven't seen too much, so I can't really comment too much. But it looks interesting. Looks like an interesting piece of software. For me, I won't be using it. Apart from the price that Adobe charge for their software, for what I'm interested in doing, it is more the traditional style of animation, rather than the extra puppetry and extra features. So Tahoma and OpenToonz work perfectly for me, but I do enjoy using the plastic tool and animate tool to get a few shortcuts in there. But yeah, that looks really interesting. Have you tried using it yourself? Or has anybody else tried using it that's on the stream today? It'd be good to get your opinions on how that works for you. I've not used Adobe products for a while. The last time I was using Flash maybe perhaps 10 years ago. It was quite a while ago for me, to be honest, which I really enjoyed at the time. It was a good, easy way to get into animation, but then the price just made it a little bit prohibitive for me, for the hobby side of things that I work on. So let me just check everything's working okay in the stream. I'm guessing you can all hear me okay and see me fine. I've made a few changes this past week or so. So I was talking with Tom and I think it was Manong John over on the Discord as I was working on the lighting here in the office, because last week and the week before I was a little bit purple on camera, and that was down to having the green screen background and the lighting the way it was set up. So I tried a few things out, experimented a little bit, and came up with this as I've got right now, which seems to work much better than it was last week. So I'm pleased that it's working okay, and it looks, for me, looks much better and much clearer. I've also made a small change to my microphone and how that's connected with the filters and things, because I found out, as we'll get to a little later, that the microphone was cutting me off at the start of talking and the end of talking sometimes, which was a bit peculiar. I'd set my filter too strong, so it wasn't quite working right. So hopefully that's working better as well. I've also done a few things on my computer itself. I've tried to make it more streamlined by uninstalling a few programs I got on here, deleting some things off the hard drive to clear up some space. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, all being well, the stream will run a lot better than it was doing the past couple of times we streamed, where OBS actually cut out on me because it was running out of resources. So fingers crossed for that. Thank you, Tom. I'm slightly looking a bit more human coloured. If I go forward more towards the lights, it's better. I'm still in the shade a little bit, so it might be worth me moving one of my front lights a little bit. See how that is. Let me try this one. There we go. It's quite dazzling as it is in my face, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. Okay, well, do pop back, English for fun. I'm not sure what name I should call you. Should I call you English or just for fun? I don't know. But do pop back and let us know how you get on with it and if it works for you, because I know there are lots of people on the channel here that like trying out different software for different purposes to find which works more efficient for them. So if you have a good recommendation, it'd be great for you to come back and let people know. Okay. Thank you, Tom. Well, do keep letting me know how things are going. If it freezes or buffers, or if the sound goes wrong or the picture. Hopefully we'll keep it running smoothly. We'll do our best with that. So I've only got 7 concurrent viewers at the minute. Normally there's a few more by this point, but we'll move, I think, into the first section and get through that. Hopefully a few more people will join in, and hopefully you'll stick around. But the first thing I wanted to look at was take a look at what I've been doing since I last streamed. What happened last week? Okay, so let me pop back here. I'll turn off the chat. So the first thing that I worked on was the video from 2 weeks ago, which was a video describing how to change your layout in OpenToonz. And I was very keen to work on this video after the release of 1.5, because I knew 1.5 would always get a lot of new people trying out the software, or people that have used the software in the past coming back to it and giving it another go. But one of the first things that people always seem to do is to mess about with the layout of the program. Even though I know everyone wants to get in and start drawing and animating, they either accidentally or on purpose move some of the windows around, often make a mess of it, because we do when we play with new software, and they need to reset it or to reorganize things. So I was very keen to try and do this video quite quickly after I'd built my longer video of the walkthrough introduction to 1.5. So this was always going to be the next video for me to work on. So I was really pleased with how it came out, and I recorded the video actually in a bit of a different way to usual, because most videos that I create, I write a full script of what I want to say to be able to work out in what order I present things so I can get the most information in as short of time as possible and showing as few mistakes. So you can watch a video and just get the information of straight through from beginning to end in the nice kind of order of what makes sense to do that particular topic. But this time I'd kind of got a few ideas of what I wanted to show, so I had a rough plan, but I instead recorded it a little bit off the cuff to record to get the stream to get the video together of showing organising the layout, and it kind of went okay. So I might play around with that a little bit more for putting these videos together, because it meant that I could record the video and edit it in the one evening, which is quite quick for getting a video together, because they can sometimes take 2 or 3 days to pull together. So I was really pleased with that. And I wanted to mention also that the thumbnail idea was thanks to Mrs. T. As I was discussing what to put on for a thumbnail, I was trying to find out a way of how I could have a photo of me on the front of the video moving windows around. So my first thought was just to be standing there sort of pushing and then have one of the windows next to my hand, like the pilot editor or something, to move it around. Wasn't quite happy with that idea, and she said, what about Tom Cruise in Minority Report, that film where he's moving around pieces of what he sees on screen and resizing things? And as soon as she said that, I thought, well, I've got to do that. So I found a photo of Tom Cruise in promotional material for the film, and this is the pose that he had up here. So I tried to try and replicate it, and I do look a little bit angry, but I was really pleased with how it came out. And as I mentioned, I think on the Discord as I was chatting about it, I almost spent more time working on the thumbnail than I did actually working on the video itself, because I was messing about with the effects, how to create the glowing and the streaks of light across it and that kind of thing. So I was really pleased with how it came out, but I can't keep looking at that any longer. I've got to take it off the screen. Just go back to the chat there. Thank you for sharing the question. So Mike's got a question. Is the cutout method the same in Tahoma as in OpenToonz? Yes, it is. Exactly the same. Tahoma is, I always say, about 99% the same as OpenToonz. It's laid out slightly different. It's laid out slightly differently, as you can see on the screen, and presented with less information in front of you. So some of the menus are slightly shorter, some placement of the buttons are in a different place, but basically it has all the same features as OpenToonz does, but it's got a few extra features itself which I really enjoy using, and that's one of the reasons I'll be using Tahoma 2D today. But we'll be looking at how I'm doing cutouts today with the project with BB8 in a short while, so you'll see some of that. So do ask any questions you have about cutout while we're looking at that there. But basically, yeah, for cutout, it's exactly the same. Rishikesh was thank you. No, I appreciate that. I appreciate the comment. I'm really pleased you're finding that the videos are useful for you to learn the software and to learn about using OpenToonz and Tahoma. That's excellent. Thank you. No, I really appreciate hearing about that. That's great. No, I'm the same when I first started about drawing stickmen. I couldn't draw much, I couldn't animate much, I could move things around a little bit. And I've been working on OpenToonz and Tahoma for the past 4 years or so. I've not spent as much time with hand-drawn animation and drawing characters as I'd like to have done. I'd like to get back to that as soon as I can. But the animation side and the software, happy to share the information I've picked up from that, and I'm so pleased you're finding that useful. So thank you for popping by and letting me know. Thank you, Maria. Yes, I'm pleased you mentioned that, the Discord server. Yeah, if you have any questions, then do pop onto the Discord server and chat with other people about animation or using OpenToonz as well, and also to share your animations. please do pop by and share them with the rest of the group. Lovely to see them. Yeah, absolutely. It's the same DNA. Yeah, that's exactly right, Tom. Yeah, OpenToonz to Homer, they're virtually the same program, and people ask all the time which one's best. And for me, I don't have a direct answer because I use both at different times for different reasons. But basically, they're the same program. So then when I finished that video, I moved on to the next video, which I made slightly differently. And I spotted the week before that I'd just got to 5,000 subscribers, so I was very keen to make a thank you video to thank you all for joining me. One thing I didn't say in the video when I'd finished making it that I realised when I was editing was I'd not mentioned that the actual number of subscribers is brilliant to get to 5k and surprising, but the amount of subscribers isn't that important really. Seeing the channel grow is perhaps more important, and the number of subscribers is kind of an indicator of that, to know that more people are following, enjoying what we do, joining the community and working on animation. That's great to see. But seeing the actual number itself isn't that really important to me, but watching it grow week on week is just so, it enthuses me to work more on the channel and to work with you on the Discord server and other areas and avenues that we're working in. So seeing that growing every week and every month is fantastic, and hitting milestones, they have to be recognised. So I was so pleased to get to 5k. And I was thinking a few months ago, I guess really, of making a vlog, a video sort of diary to chat about a few things. But something happened, I got busy, didn't quite have time, so I believe I made a speed paint. So I did some drawing and just played it by fast and chatted over the top. But after making this one at last, I think I'll be doing it again. When I've got some information to share or just want to have a chat and bring you up to date, I probably will bring another vlog back into it. And with it being such a nice sunny day, I had to get out. So I thought I'd pop out, record this video, share it with you, let you see a little bit of what's around me. It's only a few minutes walk from my house to get to the great outdoors, but as it was my first vlog to record, it was a little bit nerve-wracking to actually record it and put it together. To stand outside where people are walking past and to hold a camera and record it is a peculiar experience. I don't know if you've tried it yourself, but it's peculiar. But I really wanted to put this together and challenge myself to do something different. So I thought I'd put that together. And it was a great chance for me to review the year so far, to look back on the first stream of the year where I laid out the plans for what I wanted to do this year, and to see that we've achieved most of them. And it's a reminder of the ones we've not achieved that I need to keep an eye on to try and pick up the pace of what I want to look into. But overall, I'm really happy with what's happened so far this year and what I've managed to work on. So great video for me to make personally, and I got a lot out of it. So again, thank you everyone for following. Great to have you with us. Thank you. Hello there, Louis. Good to have you with us, buddy. Araldo from Brazil, welcome. Good to have you here. I from India, thank you. Is it Louis or Lewis? Could be either. Please do let me know. And I know, Tom, I realised afterwards that my glasses were reflective because, of course, you don't see your sunglasses from the outside. But it was such a sunny day, it was either that or my eyes would be closed as I'm squinting into the sun. And then when I was editing the video and I had it full screen on my, whatever it is, 19-inch monitor here, I could see that you could see my arm holding the camera up and you could see behind me a little bit. So that was interesting to see afterwards. But editing a video like this is quite interesting to see from the other side when you're only concentrating on being one side of the camera. So it was an interesting day all in all. So it was really, really good to do. Really enjoyed it. Hi there, Carol. Welcome to the stream. Glad you could join us today. Good to have you with us again. So yeah, so I expect at some point I'll be making another one of these. And I'll possibly go for a walk in a similar part of the area. we're surrounded by fields, farms, woodland, woods, and all sorts of outdoorsy areas, and that's why I always talk about it being like the Shire from Lord of the Rings, because it's just a lovely green place to be. But there tends to be a lot of people walking around out there, and at the minute I'm not quite ready to be recording a vlog while there's people walking past me, but we'll see what we can do with that in the future. We'll see how we get on. So I also want to give you a quick sneak peek of my next video, because I did some editing of that this week, ready for next week. So let me show you the thumbnail. Here we go. So this is basically a video taken from a stream from a few weeks ago where we looked at putting textures in perspective. And it was from a viewer's question asking how to do it, because it's a peculiar thing to try and do, that you can put textures over your drawing to fill a certain area with a texture, but it's very flat and it's facing directly to the screen. So the question was talking about how to put a texture as an angled side to make a wall moving away from the camera. So we looked at a couple of ways to do that, and they're in this video. But I tried something out which failed to work, and I've included that in the video so you can see a technique that you think might work yourself possibly. You can see how I work on it and to see that it doesn't work. And that kind of is a little bit different for the Friday tutorial videos, where ordinarily the tutorial videos are showing how something works, showing only the positive ways things work, not showing how they can't work or alternative failures. I tend to try and make them quite, as I say, as short as I can, even though they tend to be 10 minutes long or so, 10-15 minutes, but they give information of what does work, not what doesn't. So I thought I'd include it in this one for a change, because it also gives you an idea and gives other people an idea of the kind of thing we do on the stream. So it's a way for people to understand what happens with the streams, as well as learning a little bit about a topic they might be interested in. So that's for next week. So I'll be pleased to get that one out next Friday, and then that'll follow on into a couple of similar videos, but I'll leave that to later to explain what happens there. So yeah, so as I say, this was taken from a question on a YouTube video from a Friday asking how to do something. So if you've got questions about OpenToonz Autohoma, you can either comment directly on this video, put it in the chat if you're here live, or if you're watching this later, drop it in the comments, or on any other video, or pop over to the Discord and share it with us over there, and we'll either answer the question directly on the Discord server, or we might be able to answer it here in one of the streams. So that's everything that happened last week. So let's just jump back to the study. And see if there's anything else to catch up on the chat. We have a quick drink. Yeah, next time, Tom, for one of these videos, I might give you more of a view around the area. I think I was a little bit rushing through the video this week, with it being the first sort of vlog. It was kind of a peculiar experience to have. But yeah, it might be worth taking you on a bit of a walk around the area and showing you some of the view that we've got, because it's a lovely place, so it's nice to share that around. So today's topic, let's quickly mention about that then. So the first one is I'd like to look at the BB8 animation. So for the past few weeks, for those that are new here, I've been working on what you can see in the background here, the study area. And the idea is that I'd like to have items on the shelf around me from previous videos I've made and previous examples I've built. Kind of like a best of what we have. And then last time I was streaming, I worked on 2 items, and that was BB8 up here on this top shelf, and these little skeleton fellas. There he is. Tap him on the head. That was awkward. It's just here. So I worked on those 2 little animations just to sit in the background. And I don't want them to be too distracting from what we're actually talking about or what we're doing. But while I'm in this room, I'm not really demonstrating, we're mostly talking about things. Because if we're demonstrating something on screen, I'll lower the screen and that covers the animated portions of the study behind me. So that moves all the moving characters behind the screen and just leaves these pictures above my head, so it's less distracting. So I wanted the BB8 character to be just looking a little bit like he's live, moving his head around, turning a little bit and doing a little bit of leaning, just to show that he's alive. I'm going to move this little skeleton. Let me pop him up here on this shelf with that little fella there. There we go. But the first time I saw him, as soon as I saw him on the shelf, once I rendered out the animation, the first thing I wanted to do was have him move. So my plan originally was to not have him move, just sitting there, and as soon as I saw him, I want him trundling along that shelf and back. So that's what I want to look at today. To have him moving from one side to the other, and just again beeping around a little bit and moving, just to show that he's alive. So that whole shelf would be his to move around on. So I was going to take that animation that we worked on before and then just add some movement into there. And from the question earlier from Mike asking about cutout animation, he is a cutout character, and if you haven't seen him before on this channel, then check out the cutout animation playlist on the channel. It's on the main page. Just scroll down a little bit, you'll see that. And he's in the first video and was the first example that I used to show how to do cutout animation. And the reason I used him as a character rather than someone with more limbs as a human style bipedal character was that he's only got two pieces to the whole character. He's got the body and the head. So it gives you an idea of the basics of doing cutout without the complexity of having 4 joints on each arm, the legs, the body moving independently, and the head with all of its movements. So it's a simpler version to animate with. So if you take a look at that, you'll see the basics of cutout, and the whole playlist is about 14 videos that talk about cutout, including cutout with the skeleton character at the top there to give you a more detailed character to move around. So let me go back to the main drawing room and pop into there. Here we are. So I've got Tahoma here on screen, and I believe, did I use Tahoma or did I use OpenToonz? Let me have a check to remind myself. I may have used OpenToonz last time. Just double check on that. So I'm looking in Explorer on my other screen here. Yep, it's actually an OpenToonz project. So let me close down Tahoma and open up OpenToonz 1.5. And I've almost disappeared there if I move my arms out of the way, wearing black. But I am here. I've also moved the camera down a little bit, so I'm sitting in front of the start menu, because I realised I was hovering above the start menu, so it's more of me to get in the way of the screen, so I thought I'd move me down a little bit out of the way this week. So I've got my usual cup of tea to keep me going for the next half hour or so as we do some of this animation. I hope you've all got a lovely cup of tea or coffee out there. Okay, so it's open. Let me bring it onto my other screen. Here we go. And let's open up the recent scene. Here he is, BB8 on his shelf. There he is. We just pop on my other overlays. There we go. So he'll pop up from time to time and remind us of where we are, what we're doing for newbies that join the stream in there. Right, so BB8, if you've not seen him before, he's made up of 2 main body parts. So we've got the body, which is the main circle at the bottom, and the head sitting on top. And we can rotate the head around the body as he moves. But one thing I've also done, as you can see from the level strip on the right, is I had previously drawn the head drawing in 6 different positions. So if I scroll over a little bit, here we are. You can then see his head appears to turn around to face the front or to the side. And that's just 6 separate drawings. And this is a vector level drawing. So for those 6 drawings, I simply drew one and then selected and moved the lines off to the side to create the movement of the head turning around there. But when it moves fast, you don't notice that it's sliding sideways. It is more of a turn, especially as the camera eye at the front changes from being a circle at the front sliding to the side to being an oval, and then like it's on the side of the head there. So it gives that impression of the head turning around. And I did a similar thing with the body. Because I wanted the body to lean left and right as he moved, so it could lean into the movement before he goes forwards and lean in to go backwards, and to give us some overshoot turns as well. For the rotation of the body as he moved, I rotated it in the drawings themselves. So one of the things I need to do is to cycle the drawings around as he moves to the left or to the right. Hello there, Blunder. Blunder Digs, welcome to the stream. Good to have you with us. So I plan to use the animate tool to move in left and right, and also to change the drawings to give that rotation to the drawing as he moves to the sides as well. So there's a combination of those. But the first thing I want to do is to find out where the sides of the screen are. So if I go back to the study room, you'll see that I need to find the width of the shelf to be able to see how far you can trundle. So I'm going to create a couple of quick renders and we'll see how that looks just to find the width of the shelf there. So what I'll do, the first thing I need to do is to shrink him down to an appropriate size, and then I'll place him on the left, on the right, and I'll render that out and see how it fits. So the first thing I want to do is to go to the schematic just to remind myself how each column is joined to the next. So let's go to the stage schematic. So the body is at the root, so if I move or rescale the body, then everything else will scale and move with it. Both the head, the edge of the body mat that keeps everything drawn within the circle, and the shadow that I've not used so far, but I might try and use that and see how that looks when rendered and placed on the shelf. So I can move the body, so let's go back to the main drawing room. If I go to the body column, and what I might do is I'm going to actually add a new column, because one thing I've learned in the past, and I fall into the trap so often, that when I'm starting to do these things now, I'm starting to spot it, that when you add an animation key on a column, it creates one of these keys here on the timeline, or if you use the plastic tool, that also creates a key. But you only get one key in each frame here on the timeline, and you don't necessarily know which animation movement that is. And if you want to retime it, I'll move, say, the rotation to a different frame, but not the position or scale. You can't do so here on the timeline. You can only move one key. You have to go to the function editor to move that one value, and that can be fiddly. So where possible, it's best to create a separate column and maybe keep those positions and scale, rotation, plastic tool on different columns so you can see where the keys are and move them independently. Yes, Blunder Digs, absolutely, you can do that 100%. But I did it this way to allow me to do them totally independently of each other. Because you have rotation on the Animate tool, so you can rotate. But I also wanted the rotation of the body, so if I choose the Animate tool now and go to rotation, because of the cutout nature of this character, that using the schematic, the head is connected to the body. If I rotate the body, the head goes with it. So I'd have to disconnect the head and the body from being connected on the schematic to be able to rotate. So I can't spin the body and leave the head on top, but still have them connected. Does that make sense? So instead, I rotated the body in the drawings. And I did that really simply using the auto in-between tool. So it wasn't any effort, to be honest, to do so. I simply created the one drawing of the body, created a second drawing, duplicated it, and then rotated it around 360 degrees, or slightly less than 360 degrees, and then added a dozen frames in between, and auto in between, and OpenToonz actually worked out the rotation. So it wasn't difficult to do, it didn't take any time particularly, but it allows me to rotate it independently of the animate tool. And it means I can also do things like when the character's standing still, I can now rotate him leaning forwards and backwards on that position where he's standing. Okay, so if I go to frame 1, I'll add a new drawing and I'll click on the vector level. Doesn't matter what level type for this purpose. This is only going to be a column to control the position and scale of the character. So that adds a single drawing in that column. I'll rename the column. The name of the drawing level doesn't matter in this instance, you're not going to see it too often, but the column name is really useful for when we look at the schematic. So what should we name this? This is going to be the position from left to right and the scale. So let's just call it position, because the scale isn't actually going to change during the animation. So let's hit save, go to frame 1. I'll change to the all option for the animate tool. That means I can then adjust the scale and position at the same time. So I'll click and drag the bottom left little widget. And before I do anything, I need to go to the schematic and connect this together. So let's move the body over there, and I want the position to be the parent of the body. So click and drag the little dots to connect them like that. And now you can see that my scale will now work, and I can place him on the left hand side. Place him near the bottom, doesn't need to be exactly on the ground there. So if I look on OBS, let's change again quickly to that view. So we're trying to see what kind of scale we need for him. So I'm looking there at the view on the shelf, and down here I've got my tablet showing the character on screen. So I need to be larger, I think. I'm trying to picture how he might look. So let's make him a little bit larger again and place him here. Fine, let's go back. Hello again. So let's start frame 1 here. Frame 2, I will simply drag him to the right, and because I want to move him on the flat shelf, he doesn't want to move up and down the screen, I will click to lock the Y position so I can't accidentally move him up and down, and now I can only drag him left and right. And I've put him at the right hand side of the screen, so from frame 1 to 2 he simply jumps between the two. We don't need to see the movement, that's fine as it is for a quick test. And then I'll render this out, cancel, go to output settings and change my settings to render only those 2 frames. So from frame 1 to frame 2. I did shrink him last time to save me from reducing his size in OBS. So I tried to render him out at the right size, because I can just drop it into OBS, and OBS has less work to do to render him out, because there's a lot of pieces in the study screen for OBS to resize, to scale, to play the videos of, to overlay them from each other. So the less work I give it to do, the more efficient it will be. So I think I reduced it to like 4 or 5. So let me try 4 first, because the resolution is full HD. So if I left it on shrink size of 1, then the whole of the white camera area here in OpenToonz will be the size on screen the character sits. So let me render this out from frame 1 to frame 2. And obviously that's going to be very quick. And then I'll do this off screen, but if anybody is really interested, then please do let me know and I can show you how this looks in OBS to set up. Let me rename this to BB8 test. It is a GIF still, and render that out. And I can find it on disk a lot easier. Okay, and I'm going to go to my study room. Here we are. And if I add a new media source, which is what it's called in OBS, and I'll just call this BB8 test, so I recognise which one it is. And then I'll find the same file. There we go. And press OK. Right, so it's going to flicker between those two positions. It's going to be not nice to look at, but let me... So it's too small there, so I do need him larger, but let me just scale that up. So if I have him travelling the right width, it's still going to be quite small. If I have him the proper width, he's going perhaps a third too long. We pause that. Okay, so let's come back here. Antonio, hello there. Welcome to the stream, buddy. How are you doing today? So I'll go back to the position. Let's bring this down to the bottom, out of the way. We're just the scale on frame 1, as we did before. So we decided it was going a third too far. So instead of going here to the right, he needs to come less far. And because he's coming less far, I can make him larger. And don't worry if that doesn't make any sense just yet, it will do soon. So let's make him a bit larger. I'll delete the second key, go to frame 1, unlock the Y option so I can position him anywhere on here. Make him a little bit larger again. Frame 1 and frame 2. In fact, because he was flickering quite a lot, let me bring him over to frame 12, so that's half a second. Lock the Y, bring him all the way to the right, and then we should see some movement there. That's fine. Hit save. Okay, and let me go to the render options and let me bring the shrink down to 3 so it's still larger from the rendering as well, and just see how that is. And this is something you have to go through a couple of times to just find out the basic position of things and to be able to figure out the layout of what you want before you start actually doing any drawing or animation. Okay, and because, for those of you using OBS, let's change back to the study room, because we've already got OBS pointing at this file on disk to show the character, I can't render out to the same name, so it renders out to a different name. So I've got to then browse to that different name and change that. Looks like that. Okay, so that's the size now rendered at 3 times, so it is quite large. And if I reduce them to the size of the shelf, it's not a bad size, but it is just slightly too large. So come back here, let's try a shrink of 4 and just render that out. Okay, so again, back to the study, and I think we're getting closer now. Pick the new file, Just reset the size, make sure I've got the original size, transform, reset. Right, so that's his actual size if I just render and then use it. So you can see it's not going to go the full width. So I do need to render it larger to be able to go over the full width of the screen. So I do need to render this out to shrink of 3. I'll just do that now quickly without changing screens. It's a good question, Tom. Tom's asking, can you use only integer values, so whole numbers? So can I do 3.5? No, I can't put 3.5, but I can put 3,5. I heard the other day there was a bit of a bug where you can't put decimal points in some of the text boxes. So let me try this. Make sure I'm using the right file. So yeah, so it's called temp number 3. So let's just try this one then. And then let me reset the size. No, so that didn't work. So I set him, let me pause that because he'll make me dizzy. So I set this, as you can see on this screen here, I tried setting it to 3.5. You can't put a decimal point in there, but you can put a comma. So I put 3,5, that just rendered out at full size. So I need to render it out at shrink of 3. Okay, and let me go back to here and load in the new one. Pause that a second and reset the size again, make sure we're on exactly the right size. And to fit the width I need to bring that down. So that's not bad, with a small reduction that will be fine. Let me play that. So that's the distance he can move. So I might actually move that to the left a bit. Yeah, good. So that's the right size for the rendering, so we know now shrink of 3. So I'll leave that on there. We've also got the amount of space he can travel across the camera area here, so we know where he's travelling. Absolutely, Maria. Ideally, you should be able to do decimals. I know people have asked for changing that shrink option to be more clear, so be able to put in a percentage. So you can say 50% smaller, 25%, rather than a shrink of 2 or 4 for the same values. Save early, save often. Thank you very much. Absolutely. Exactly, yeah, keep saving, make sure you've got what you're working on perfectly safe. So we've got the position, we've got the scale, we'll know where we can travel to. In fact, we can go a little bit more to the left or right if we want to, that's fine, to adjust that as necessary. The scale is only going to be set on frame 1, so we can't adjust it later, otherwise it'll start to grow and shrink, which isn't what we want in this case. So if we take a look at the whole animation first, let me just go to the last frame. I'm just checking the play markers are set up. And then if I hide the position column, oh, it still moves it, so let's delete the key on frame 12 so it doesn't move. And let's see what we've got, just to remind me what I actually originally set up. So he leans forward to have a look around. He stands back up, takes a look at us inquisitively, does a little lean, back to the centre, a quick glance to the right, And that's it. Okay. And then that's back to frame 1, so it can cycle on the shelf and you don't see the join. So I want to do that again. I'd like to have this playing as a GIF, repeating GIF, so you don't see where the end of the animation is. You just see him on the shelf, playing around and tottering about. So I think I'd like him to be standing on the left, does some bit of movement, and then slides all the way to the right, has a look around maybe, turns around, has a pause, and then maybe just comes straight back. So quite a simple piece of movement. Cat tap animation. Hello there, Russia. Good to have you with us. Thank you, Maria. I love it. I love popping that little gesture in. Just a little. I love it. It's just quite a sympathetic look. It adds character to even the simplest robot like this. So I want to make sure I keep that in for sure. Absolutely. How are you doing today, Catsap? Are you well? Okay, so let's start. See where we've got, see what we can keep, because I'm going to end up deleting a lot of the keys, I think, to be able to put in this movement and to fit it in with the rest of the animations. Let's hit play. So it's happy to sit there and have a look around at the beginning. And let me just pause that. I do want this to move quite slowly. As I said, I don't want the animation to catch your eye too much and to take your eyes away from anything else on the screen. It is supposed to be a background after all. So when he actually sits there still and moves, I want it to be quite subtle movement. And then when he moves across, I don't want him necessarily going too fast, again because it'll catch your eye, but to have him move over. So we'll need to keep down the pacing and slow things down with pauses in between, I think, to keep it a subtle background animation. Oh, that's great, that's cool. What are you working on right now, Catsap? So I think having him looking at us and doing that little tilt. And then, in a second, that's where I want him to go to the right. So where are we? Let me just check. Frame 335. Yeah, I think he's sat there for a while, and now is where I think I want him to look to the right. I quite like most of that, to be honest. Let me see again. So let's try and find the right place for the movement to happen. Because I don't want him constantly whizzing backwards and forwards. And we can adjust the timing later, as we discussed last week, and I can show you again how I'm going to do that. So that's quite a big gap here, so I might reduce that timing, but again, let me keep away from the timing for now. Yeah. And then he looks again, that's good, yeah. Let me try it here, so where are we? 4, 2, 1. That's right at the end of the animation. Okay. Let me bring it back a little bit. So, let's work on the movement first, and then we'll consider the rotation of the body. So 391 is where we are. So I want to have the position of the character in the same place. So I'll add a key by pressing the diamond button under the viewer. And then I want to move him to the right. So I'll just click a number of frames. I'm not even considering the distance or counting. I can recognise that's half a second because of these blue lines which last for a quarter of a second. So from directly after one blue line, skip one blue line, go to the second blue line, that's half a second, but the time is not important. I just want to have a gap to then move him all the way to the right, there. Let me hit save again, and before I go any further, let's check on the default interpolation by going to the Preferences dialog, then the Animation tab, and checking the default interpolation is indeed speed in, speed out, which is one of the easiest interpolations to edit and gives you quite a nice movement with its default movement anyway. So that's always the first one I choose. So before the character moves, I want the head, in fact the whole body, to lean backwards, ready to go forwards. So if I go to the body column, I'm going to add a key at one point, and this is why we've got a separate column for the body and the position. So a couple of frames before, I'll add a key. Again, using the animate tool, I'm going to hold the Alt key and click on the top widget, which is rotate, to slowly rotate him round. It makes it easier to use the controls if you hold the Alt key when you click and drag them. In fact, undo that. Let me click and drag that key to bring it further forwards. Leave a couple of frames, again so we can adjust the timing, and in that second frame I'll hold Alt and drag the rotate backwards so that he starts off sitting up, rotates backwards. There will be a pause, so let me move these two keys backwards there. There will be a pause, so I'll add another key there, so it's exactly the same key. And then he'll move forwards. Before he starts to actually move. So let's look at that. So he leans back, pauses, and then goes forwards and then moves. And we'll look at the timing afterwards. And then he gets to the end position, and I'd like him to have some overshoot at the end. So I'll add a key there. A couple of frames later, I'll have him leaning a bit further forward, and a few frames later, coming back to the center. And if we take a look at the rotation on the options toolbar, I can click in that box and actually type a number to set the rotation to exactly 0 if that's what we want. But for this case, I want a bit of a wiggle, so I'll bring it backwards to the left and then back to 0. So we get overshoot to the right, a bit of overshoot back to the left, and then back to the center. So it's got a little bit of a wobble about it. So we need to organize the timing for this. So the best way to do that is to set the start play marker just before the movement rather than on frame 1. And the end play marker is towards the end, so that's sort of fine where it is. So if we hit repeat play, and then we can see just that one small animation in approximately the right timing. If you look below the viewer here, you see the FPS box is in red to show that we can't reach 24 frames a second, but we are getting between 17 and 20, so it's quite close. But it's going to go slightly faster than that, so we need to be careful to consider the timing that we're going to do here. So at the start, let's think what we need to do. At the start, it leans backwards quite quickly, and I'd like him to pause for a little longer, so I need to slow those two down. Moving forwards is fine, leaning forwards, that gives it a good momentum to slide over. And at the end, that's not bad for stopping. It's quite a steady stop there, so I'm quite happy with that. So I'm going to increase the timing between some of these keys here. And if you wasn't here last time, the way I do that is, because I've left a gap between the keys, I can click on any frame between those two keys, and these are the keys for him leaning backwards. So click on any frame, I've gone 383 there, and I'll use the option that is in X sheet, insert frame, and that goes along with the sister option of remove frame. And I've added the keyboard shortcut Control Insert for insert, Control Delete to remove. So if I go between those frames, I can press Control Insert on my keyboard, and it moves over all of the drawings in the current frame, so it extends them for an extra frame, and also moves the keys forward at the same time across all columns. So it does 3 things in one go, and it's a very quick way to change your timing on the animation, provided you've got the gaps between the keys or the gaps between the drawings. So you can extend portions or reduce portions to get the timing better. Enyo-san, hello there. Glad you could join us. Thanks, Maria. Yeah, I was happy with that. Again, just throw down the keys. If you want to work in this style, throw down the keys, leave a bit of a gap, and you can adjust it quite comfortably later. So he leans back and pauses. So I'll add a couple more frames for the pause. But then going forward over 2 frames, I was quite happy with, so we'll leave that in a second. The only thing about this you might want to change is because we're using speed in and speed out, the speed in at the start of the lean, but speed out from the start of the lean and speed in. The speed in isn't really what you want because you want to lean in quite fast. So I might need to change that a little bit more. What are you up to today, Enyo-san? Are you doing some drawing or animation? You hit save. Let's replay that and see that timing. And let it play a couple of times for the FPS to build up a little bit, for the previews to build up. If you're really keen on getting the timing spot on, you can use the preview option, check the frame numbers, that's correct, adjust the shrink so there's less of a screen to preview, and then in fact tick the box apply shrink to main viewer. We're really handy that when you preview using the I button on the main viewer, it'll use that same shrink option. I'm not doing that right now, but if I choose to do so, it'll make that run faster. So with that set up, I can then just hit preview, and this will then cache all of those drawings, and it should play nearer to the full FPS at 24 FPS. Let's just hit replay on that. Yep, OpenToonz today. As I said at the beginning of the stream, there's not really a difference, as you know, Enyo-san, not really much of a difference between OpenToonz and Tahoma, especially with the 1.5 release. They've pulled over 1 or 2 of the layout features that I like. The extra plus button on the level palette is a tiny feature that it just makes that little interface work a little bit better. And the way they've pulled them over, it makes me want to use OpenToonz more, so that I'm really pleased to be getting back to OpenToonz. But one of the reasons I used this the last time I was streaming is because the original animations were created in OpenToonz. I wanted to reuse them, so I thought I'd stick with OpenToonz and to get some more use out of 1.5. And then I'm using it today because I'm continuing with the same animation that I was working on before. But I'm quite happy switching between both of them for this kind of animation. Oh, doing some wall painting. Oh, you enjoy that. It's not really one of my favourites. No, Antonio, different developers. Basically, Tahoma is a fork, what they call a fork of OpenToonz. So you can take the OpenToonz code and then you can what's called fork it into your own copy. So you've got a copy of OpenToonz code and you can add your own features on top of it, or your own changes of the program. So the guy, Jeremy Bullock, that originally created Tahoma, is a teacher and wanted to teach the kids at school animation, in particularly stop motion. And he wanted to add a few extra features to make the program work smoother for the younger kids. So things like being able to save your project anywhere, not just in the OpenToonz stuff folder from installation. I know you can change the save folders in OpenToonz, but that's a preferences change. So you wanted to be able to save anywhere. You wanted to add some features on for the stop motion and the way the layout of the program looks, just to make it work better. And he decided to release it to the public so we could all get these benefits as well. But underneath the hood, up until his changes, it is exactly OpenToonz, so it's virtually the same program. John does animations. Hello there, John. Good to have you with us. How are you doing? Okay, so I'm quite happy with the general timing of the lean, a pause, and then starts to move. But we have got the issue I mentioned earlier, Maria, of the interpolation type. So when he leans forward, he slows into the lean, and also as he starts to move, he slowly starts to move, but he goes quite slow, and he probably will go quicker because of the momentum from leaning. So when he starts to move across the screen, it starts very slow. So I do want to change that. So we'll take a look at the function editor. So for those of you that haven't seen the function editor before be ready to have your socks blown off, because it's a bit messy, but it works really nicely. So let me show you that. So if we go to the animation tab, I believe it's in, yeah. Here we go, the function editor. And it's the movement of the body I want to look at first. So if we go to the X sheet here, starting at frame 380, and it's the position column. So let's go to the position column, and it's moving across the X location from left to right. Here we go. So from 394 is where he starts to move. So he's moving from 394 to frame 406. And you can adjust those numbers. You can adjust the interpolation type using this panel at the bottom left. But the easiest way to adjust this is with the graph editor. And to get to that, you press the button at the top right of the function editor, and that pops open this graph editor. And we've currently chosen to show in the function editor the X position of the position column. So if I use the middle mouse button, I can pan to the side, and now we can see where the change happens through those 12 frames. And if I click and drag on the top here where the numbers are, I can make that fit wider onto the screen, and it makes it easier to see the pacing of that curve, where you can see the speeding into the movement, the speeding out from the static position into the movement, and then the speed in to the stop position. So I want the out, the first part of the movement, to go much faster than it does, because it goes quite slowly. So if I click and drag this handle, I can move that up here, and that's a more severe, a quicker movement from the start, and then it can slow down to the end. That's fine. So let's just close that and replay that section. So now he starts off faster as he starts to move. So the other thing I wanted to look at was the lean itself, which is in the body column, and that's the rotate option. So let's go down to the rotate values, click on that to show those. So it's from these two frames here, you can see the rotate happening. And again, if we go to the graph view, and it's from frames 391 to 393, the frame numbers are shown at the top. So if I click and drag to move that, and then click and drag on the numbers to zoom in a little bit, and if you do the same on the left, I can increase the scale so you can more easily see the curve of that movement, even though it's only over 2 frames. So what I want to do is change the end, that's saving, change the end position, so click on that handle there, so that instead of easing into the final lean over position, it goes in quite fast. So I need to lift this left handle upwards. But you notice it moves the right handle at the same time, and that's because the two handles are linked. So if I right click on the middle of the node, I can unlink those two handles and then just move the left handle so it doesn't affect the right, and now lean at a much faster pace, ready for moving. So if I close that, I'll hit save and then hit replay, and then the first lean here goes a lot faster and it just looks slightly better. It's a tiny change, but you get that feeling, more of a feeling than what you see of the energy being put into the lean. Oh, excellent, Maria. Let us know how you get on with that. Yeah, the function editors is a fun place to be. It really is. I could make half a dozen videos about using this whole control, and I suspect I will at some point, but likely for a course, because there's a lot to cover. So I'm thinking about putting that into a separate course at some point. It can't be for the very near future. I'm just tied up at the minute, but I'd like to at some point, because I think there's a lot people can get out of the function editor and of the whole cutout situation. So I'm happy with that movement to the right. So let me go back to the drawing room. So now he's gone to the right. I'd like him just to do a little bit of looking around before he comes back to the left. So I've got no other animation keys now towards the end, but what I will do is I'll press the Control Insert keys just to add some more spacing for those drawings to last longer. In there, hit save. And there's other ways you can add lots of spacing, so you could highlight all of the frames, 3 frames in here, and then you could choose to repeat them, which is that button there, I believe. Yeah, so hit repeat, and I could choose to repeat them up to a certain frame number. So if I want to go up to frame 600, let's hit repeat, and now those drawings will last up to frame 600 plus the couple of drawings I've got at the end that I'd already inserted. Let me delete those drawings here. If I want to add the shadow, I'll do that separately. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot to the function editor, but you can get into it and just learn pieces at a time and work with pieces at a time until you build up your full knowledge. But if you're changing about creating a tremor option, creating a vibration, I'm guessing you might be using the expression that we've discussed a couple of times here on the channel, but you still might want to use this control to adjust the timing of that. So the important thing to remember is to zoom in and out. You click and drag over the numbers at the top, all the numbers down the side, to increase or decrease the scale and make it easier to see what you're editing on screen. But have a play, see how you get on with that, let us know, as I say. So okay, so now he's come over, he stood still, so I think he's facing the wall. We want him to sort of look up and down a little bit to think, where am I? What's here? And then turn around, a little bit more of a look around, and then drive on again. Yeah, the expression. I do actually want to make a short video about the expression for the quiver. I can't think what they call it now, but the shake expression. I think that's going to be really useful for people for lots of situations. So I'd like to put something together for that at some point. It's Animation Overload. Hello there, welcome. I'm doing very well today, thank you. Very well. And you was asking, how do I pull the curve window there? So if I go to the animation room, and you may have the function editor in this room, in a different room. So for instance, if I go to the drawing room, you can go to the Windows menu, for those that don't know, and in here you'll find the function editor. So you can show that in this room if you want to. But I like to switch rooms to change between what I'm working on. It feels more comfortable for me. So all you need to do to bring up the graph is to press the button here at the top right of the function editor, and then that pops open into a new window. Now you can change it so the function editor pops open in this area here where the grid is, where the spreadsheet view is, as I call it. And if you want that, just go to your File Preferences window, and then in one of these there's an option here, Function Editor. It chooses to open in a pop-up by default, but you can choose to toggle between the two in the same window if you want to. But to change these, don't forget to restart the program. There's a small star asterisk at the side, and that means you have to restart OpenToonz. And the third option in the center, saying Spreadsheet opens in a pop-up, that means that when you first go to the function editor, the default view is the graph view, and you press that button to open the spreadsheet. Okay, so he's facing the wall. I want to go to the head column, and this has been animated before with the Animate tool. So before you do anything, you have to throw a key down so that between the current frame and the previous animation, it doesn't move. So that gives you a starting point for the next part of the animation. And again, we'll go a few frames forward. I'm not bothering to count them. We'll adjust the timing afterwards. I'm in the animate tool, I'm in the all option, but for adjusting the head, the only thing I ever want to do is to rotate. So in this instance, I'll choose specifically the rotate option, because that means you can't accidentally change the position or scale or shear. But also for rotation, it's easier to click on the screen anywhere on the screen, and the only thing you get is animation as an option. So I want him to look up. So from here, he looks up. So before I go any further, I'm going to set a start marker at the beginning. Try again. Set the start marker on 419, and I'll move the stop marker off to the side, ready for previewing this small piece of the animation. Okay, so he looks up. Let's hit save. I'll hide that green circle. He looks up. There's a small pause, and then I want him to turn around and have a little look, as though he's inquisitive about what's here. To do that, if you remember from earlier, there's a number of drawings I need to change to do so. And the way, Jer, you've made it. Hello there, buddy. How are you doing today? Thank you for joining us. So the way I'm going to do this is with the drawing replacement feature, which you find in the cells option, or is it X sheet? I can never find it in the menus. We'll find it in a second. Yep, the cells menu, drawing substitution, and it's the drawing substitution to change the drawing backwards and forwards through the drawings in the level strip. So I'm going to use the keyboard shortcuts Q and W. Absolutely, Maria. Yeah, I often tell people do change the shortcut keys, change the layout of the windows, and anything about the program that makes working with it much quicker for you. So work out what you want the interface to look like, what keys you want to use to switch between features and that kind of thing. So absolutely, it's well worth doing that. Me too, Jay. I use this drawing substitution a lot on here, especially for these style of animations. So you can just select on one frame and then press the W key. So currently he's looking to the right, which is drawing number 6, I can see there. So I'll press Q to go backwards. So that goes to drawing number 5, as you can see on the timeline. Then 4, 3, 2, 1. Press it again, and it'll cycle back round to 6. Press it again, down to 5. So the cycle round in one direction or the other. So do have a play with them. And you may have noticed that when we change this drawing from number 6, which all of these are, bring down to 5, you'll see that the following drawing, the following frame, is showing drawing 6 onwards. So we've got drawing 6 before and drawing 6 after. So adjusting on one frame only adjusts that one frame. So if you want to adjust more than one frame, you click and highlight over a number of frames, and then you can press Q or W, move that out of the way, and it'll change all of them. So that whole selection is now drawing 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 6, 5. And then you can adjust more than one at once. It's really, really helpful to do that, especially if, as I'm intending to do here, I'm going to change the drawing so they count down to go 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 as his head turns to facing the front. If I didn't do it all at once, I would have to change the first drawing to one frame, the second one twice, the third one 3 times to get different numbers in each one. Golden Slime, hello, welcome to the stream. Glad you joined us. Good to have you here. Yeah, I use the shortcuts a lot. It's really, really useful to, if you work with multiple drawings to do drawing replacement. If you do, for instance, lip syncing, if you've got a character talking and want to manually change them, not using any kind of tools, using the Q and W keys is invaluable to change between drawings. So I've changed all that selection to drawing 5. They're all 5. So then I can click and drag from the next drawing, press Q again, they're all 4, click and drag again they're all 3. Click and drag again on the next set, they're all 2. Click and drag again, they're all 1. So it's much quicker if you do a block at a time. So now the character will turn around to face the front. But it only stops on 439 there, on drawing 1, and then it goes back to drawing 6, which is what I want in a second. But let's change the drawing first to make him look around and have a think about things. Just checking out the chat up here. Yeah, absolutely can speed up your process. And if you organise your columns to have the appropriate drawings in, so you separate and collapse your character into different columns, it's much easier. So you could have one column showing the eyes to add a blink quickly, another one for the mouth to lip sync or to have him smile or what have you, to emote in some way, and a separate one for a different head shape maybe, so you can draw his hair blowing in the wind or doing something with a hat moving around or whatever you want your animation to be. But having multiple columns and using the drawing replacement is really helpful. Hey there, Jimpy, good to have you with us. I saw Tony Gaddis has a new video out. I was going to take a look at that later on today. It was about setting up or preparing for animation, I believe the title was. So I was going to have a look, see what he did with that, and to see what he's doing with his little monsters, which I love seeing. Hi there, Newsan. No, I've not. I don't know about anybody else in the group, if you want to chime in there. I've not done any animation challenges for quite a while. No, I do want to do a new sort of collaboration of some sort. I've talked about it a few times on the Discord, done nothing about it yet, unfortunately, but I'd like to get us all together doing something. If you've got some ideas, please do send them in. I think a good place to do so, feel free to say today, but a good place to do so would be on the Discord in the collaborations room, so we can all have a chat there about what to do. I'd like to do something together, all of us. It'd be really good to do so. Regarding animation challenges themselves, the last one I think I did that was truly a challenge would be the straight ahead challenge that I did live on a stream one evening. That was really fun. I enjoyed that. And I've of course done the collaboration with the Bugs Bunny collaboration, which kind of was a personal challenge for me, but I really enjoyed that at the start of the year. Okay, so he turns round, he'll pause for a while, and then I think, let's extend that drawing out. I'd like his head to move back. Again, we'll worry about the timing separately. So I'll add a key here, so his head doesn't move during that small period of the head turn animation. Bring him back up here. I was about to say, Jim, you almost beat me to it. I was going to ask Jer if you're streaming again later on today. And I don't know if I've mentioned it before, but do feel free to share a link on the Discord server when you are streaming to let people know. I think a lot of people would find that useful, so please do that. Yeah, it's really good to have you back with us and doing things. I'm glad you're feeling better, and I hope you continue to do so. I'm going to provide some overshoots here again, so the head can go too far for a second and then just come back again. And this kind of animation, because of the spacing and the timing of it, is something I can come back to later and add to later. So if during the week or next week I watch this back and I see that the animation is going a bit too quickly or even too slowly, or there's too much movement, not enough movement, then we can always come back and adjust that and then just re-render it out again for the following week, and we can keep messing with it until it looks right and it's still exactly how I want it. And I'd really kind of like to do, as we mentioned before for this Skelly Bob, to seasonalise him. I'll make up a word. So perhaps during Christmas, I'd add a Christmas hat on onto BB8, and then just re-render him with his Christmas hat on, or add some snow onto the top of him, or what have you, or springtime, you can add some leaves around the base of the shelf to blow around when he moves. There's space for that kind of thing. So this is kind of just the basics, the startup of getting animation in place. Okay, excellent, Jay. Hopefully I'll be able to join you in a bit and keep an eye on that, but have a great stream anyway. Okay, so it's looking back to the front. I want to get them to turn around and come back to the left. We can insert some extra animation if necessary. And I've not got an animation of the head moving all the way around 360 degrees. Only moving, as you can see, over 6 drawings from facing the front to facing the side. But what we can do is we can flip that animation or that drawing. So let's set the initial rotation here to 0. And then if I go to the scale option, make sure we've got a key set for the horizontal scale. So I'll click into the H box and press enter, and that'll be sure to add a key for that value. Then on the next frame, if I put a value in there of -100% and press enter, it'll flip that drawing to the opposite side, or at least, to be more exact, it'll flip the column to the opposite side from that point onwards. So any drawing in this column is now going to be flipped. So I can now rotate each of these heads, or show each of those drawings of the head, and they'll be going in the opposite direction because they're all flipped. So if I, on this frame where we flip it, start the rotation already, so I'll change from drawing number 1 to drawing number 2, and I'll click and drag a block of them again and press W, so they'll all go to drawing number 2, and then click and drag all but the first and press W to go to drawing 3, click and drag and press W to go to 4, the last one, press W, goes to 5, and on the final drawing I'll change that to 6, which is the following drawings here. So I'll highlight all of the ones and press Q, and it rotates round to number 6. So even though the drawing of the head isn't symmetrical, so you can see this extra black circle here at the right hand side, and when you flip, that row jumps to the other side. It's a very small change that I don't think you'll notice, especially being as it's so small in the background. So let's see how that looks here. So he tips his head back to the center and then flips and looks to the left. I think I might want a gap in that, so we'll take a look at that in a second. So let me hit save. Save early. Save often, exactly right. Let's hit replay and just see what we've got. So everything's going to go really fast. So starting off looking towards the right, and then he looks up and down, turns around and rotates all the way around. So let's sort out that timing a little bit. So what have we got? So he looks up, he immediately starts to look down, and I think that's because I forgot to add a key in there, so I'll do so. So I'll go to 429, and if I press Control C and copy that key and then Control V, I've now got 2 keys the same, and I can move that along to adjust the spacing. So he looks up, and that's where he turns around. Okay, so I want him to look up and wait for a while. So again, in between those 2 keys, I'll press Control Insert to insert some timing, a bit of space there. I want him to look up, pause a while, we bring that key back, and then I can insert some space after that key, and I can. Out of interest, Joe, I didn't actually ask. You say you're dropping kiddo off at camp. Which camp is this? What kind of camp is that? Is that just for the day, or is it overnight for a few days? Because in this country, sometimes we have small camps at a smaller level than they have over there. where kids will go for a weekend or for a week. Usually it's with scouts or guides or some other kind of young person's group, and they go away for a few days to experience the outdoors and try a few things and just to get together as a group. Is it that kind of thing? Exactly, Maria. Yes, yeah, brackets. It brackets the movement. You're right. Act the same way as parentheses. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, there you go, Jay. Rock climbing, hiking. That's the kind of thing I was thinking of. Oh, she's going to love that. Oh, it's a great time to do that kind of thing. Brilliant. I bet she is. And when I was, what would I be? About 12, 13, I think. I went away with a scout group at a campsite, played some games between us. It's kind of like one long evening at Scouts, spent over a week, where we did a few things, did some walking, hiking, played a scary game in the woods, I remember, which terrified me as a youngster, where we had to go from one side of the campsite to the other, but the only way to get there was through the woods. And just before we played the game, they told us a scary story around the campfire about somebody that was hiding in the woods, and you could hear them shouting sometimes. And then once the game started, we went through the woods, and one of the scout leaders was the other side of the woods shouting, "Ah!" And you could hear that as you went through the woods. Petrified me. Had a great time. Loved it. Replying back to Enyo-san, I think you half read or read a comment that had been half heard by somebody else or misinterpreted. Nobody has abandoned the project that I know of. I think where it was, I remember seeing a conversation, and I was sort of involved in some of it. Somebody was asking how many developers are working on OpenToonz Autohoma, and talking about all the developers in OpenToonz. Can they do this? Can they do that? And I remember saying that there's currently only one developer for OpenToonz working regular, and that's Shun Iwasawa. There are others that come along and add an extra feature or fix some bugs from time to time, but in general there's kind of just one developer, and he actually works for Studio Ghibli, so his priorities are going to be more towards what Studio Ghibli want than necessarily what other people want, especially us Joe Public guys. So there's going to be kind of almost a conflict of interest, but he's got different priorities. So he's the main developer, and he's working on different features and fixes, and that's great. He's still there. There's no change. And then there was Jeremy working on Tahoma, created Tahoma originally, and he left for a short while to spend some time with his family and working on other projects. And then Malong John took over. He gave him all of the keys and access to it, to the project, and he grabbed that and ran with it, and has been working solidly for the past few months on features and completing features from Jeremy and putting them out. And he's still working on that, and I'm expecting from time to time Jeremy will still join in and also join in the development and bug fixes and features. So there's the same number of developers around, so no, there's no change there. There's no sign of Tahoma being abandoned. That's still growing and still lively. And OpenToonz is still in the same development stage as it was before. It's being developed and progressed. And version 1.5, recently released, has got probably over 100 different bug fixes and features added to it. So you can still feel that things are developing and progressing. And since the full release of 1.5, there's been other features and bug fixes added that you can get from the nightly release, and you can see what they are on the nightly release page and on the GitHub page, so do take a look. So yeah, no, things are still good. Don't you worry about that. Things are still good, but we can always do with more developers. So if you know anybody that wants to write some code for us, do invite them along. It'd be great to have more people. The more people are in there, the quicker we can progress. Spirited Away, quite a few Studio Ghibli's films have used OpenToonz in one way or another. They still animate on paper, but they scan and colour, I believe, some parts in OpenToonz. They use some of the effects in OpenToonz, and that's why the effects have been developed. I know the is it called bubble? There's a bubble effect, bubble colour, to create like a coloured sheen on the outside of a soap bubble, was created for a Ghibli film, which I can't remember offhand what it's called. But that was because they wanted to create this bubble effect that had a character inside during one of the scenes. So they added that effect in, and that's where I mentioned that Shun has different priorities. That if they're working on a film where they need a certain effect, then he comes along and he is tasked to produce that effect. So yeah, some of the effects have been specifically for the programs, for the films. Ponyo as well, I believe. Yeah, Ponyo used OpenToonz. So yeah, quite a few films have used it. It'd be nice if between them they created a bit of a trailer for OpenToonz, a bit of a demo how they use OpenToonz to animate with, a little featurette. It'd be great if they did that as kind of an extra for the DVD. So where they do behind the scenes of how they animate and add the sound and all the other technical features. It'd be great if one of them was focused specifically on using the software. That'd be a great promotion for us, I think. Was that Ponyo? Oh, okay. Right, thank you. Islam, hello there. Princess Mononoke, great film, loved it. Yeah, absolutely loved that one. And they've all used it in many different ways, but only using the program for small parts of what they are building the animation for. So no one yet has used OpenToonz for a complete film or TV program, I believe, but they've been used for portions of it. And if you go to the OpenToonz site, they list a few. I remember Batman? I can't think what it was called. One of the Batman cartoons was used OpenToonz or Toonz in some way, one of the two programs, and quite a few have done so. Okay, so where are we for this? Let me just take a quick look then. So I've changed the timing. So he looks up, he pauses, and I want him to look down again. So again, that's where he's turned around there. So if I copy that key to before he turns, so again, select on the key, press Ctrl-C, move to another frame, press Ctrl-V. So now he looks up, he pauses, he looks down, then turns around, and then goes to the other side. Let's organise these keys. I'm going to change these slightly. So let's delete those, and we'll re-time and re-add that flip that he does. So he turns, before he turns around actually, so he looks down. Let me extend that timing again with Control Insert. Let's move that along a little bit. So he looks down, I'd like a pause. Just a small one. Then I'd like him to look back up again. Oops, undo that, that's a scale. So let's change this back to rotation. So I want him to look back up and back to 0, so that the flip will go much smoother. I'm also going to change the center point, the center position, to try and be in the center, so you're less likely to see that flip. Although the center point is for the rotation, so I best leave that one in there. So go back to the scale. So he looks up, and then he looks around to the center. There'll be a small pause, and then I want him to look to the left after he's flipped. So the point here where he flips, the frame before, I'm going to set the key to 100% for the horizontal scale. Go to the next frame, change that to -100, and press enter. So that's flipped that whole column. But it also, at the same time, I'm changing the drawing to drawing 2, and then he moves on to continue turning around to the left. Let's drag the end play marker, hit save, and then loop play to see how some of that timing looks. So the timing again is too quick, I need to slow that down, but the movement is okay. He looks up, he looks down, comes back to the center, turns, and then looks around. Okay, so let's just space that out a little bit. So back to this first frame. So he looks up, I want to pause a bit longer there, so again, Control Insert. I'm just tapping it a few times, half a dozen. The numbers aren't important, it's the feeling of the movement that we'll see when we replay this. Then he looks down. I want to pause there as well. Although I'm going to have a small bit of overshoot as he looks down. So if I go a couple of frames before the end position and then rotate him down using the rotate option a little bit further, so he goes from here, he looks down a bit far and then comes straight back. So there's a small bit of overshoot and a bit of a, it's less mechanical feel, a bit more organic of the movement there. Then I want to pause for longer, so I'll press Control Insert to move everything along a little bit, and then look up, a small pause, turns around, then he looks all the way to the left, and then I'll just have him doing that thing of moving to the other side of the screen again. So I'll have him, if I go this way, leans backwards, pauses, and then leans forwards and runs off to the side of the screen. So exactly the same as we had on the left, but on the right. So he leans back, pause, lean forward and run. So let's just see the timing of this section first. So that's quite quick at the beginning there. So where he looks up, I'm going to space that out. So I go in between the keys. I was about to move the key then. Press Control Insert 4 times. Let's see how that looks. Again, for the gap when he's looking upwards, a little bit more of a pause. When he looks down, he goes quite quickly. So I'm going to add a couple in there. I'll leave the little bounce overshoot as just the 2 frames there. That's fine. We could adjust the timing of those. And in fact I will do. Just for a bit of fun and just so you see how I do it again, let's look at the function editor in the graph view to adjust that little timing there. So we'll come back to that in a second. So he looks down and then he looks up. So again, just space it out. So when he looks up, let's add a couple more spacing. He looks to the side towards us and then he turns around, hit save. Let's see how that is. Yeah, so the rotation of the head, I can see the change because I know what I'm looking for, I know how it works. But when he's reduced to be a small character on the shelf, I don't think you'll see that at all. I don't think anyone would ever notice that. So that's perfectly fine. So let me look at this timing in the function editor and then we'll do the run back. So back to the animation tab. So it is the rotation, but the rotation of the head. So we'll turn off that column for the body. And the fewer columns you show, the easier it is to use the graph editor. So we'll go to the head and we'll expand that with the arrow. And then click on rotation. Now press the button at the top right of the spreadsheet editor for the function editor and get the graph. Let's check where we want to edit these values. I think it's around here, so let me bring him into the view, make him larger so I can see what we're doing. Okay. So it is exactly there. He looks down and bounces back up. So it's that movement there around frame 457. Oh, excuse me. I'll just drop my jacket. There we go. Okay, so again, middle mouse button that I've got mapped onto my pen to drag that across to the left, and 4, 5, 7. Here we are. So we're zoomed in quite a lot. Let me click and drag on the numbers to bring them closer together. And that's quite a large view on the graph. I hope you can see that for those that want to see the graph editor. So we'll expand that as wide as we can. So we want the movement to be sliding down and bouncing back quite tightly. So it shouldn't be easing in and then easing out. It should be kind of quite a big bounce. So as he looks down, if I go that way, he looks down, I can do look down, and it's a small bounce back. So he's up here and he looks down. So this has kind of got to be a tighter V shape to create that kind of bounce back over there. Batman Ninja, that was it. Thank you, Animation Overlord. Yes, Batman Ninja. Quite enjoyed that film. But if you take a look on the OpenToonz site, you'll see they've got a screenshot and some words about what they did using it in that film. Jim P's asking, how do you quickly mirror sideways to check your drawings? Just hit save so I don't lose anything here. Very simply, Jim P. There's a button here at the bottom of the viewer in OpenToonz 1.5. And that flips horizontally or vertically, whichever is more appropriate. But if you want to, you can add a keyboard shortcut to that by hitting Configure Shortcuts in your File menu. In the search box, type either horizontal or vertical, and that's the option for flipping horizontal. And then select it in here, and then press a shortcut key. So I like to change this to H for horizontal. There we go. Now that's blue, I can press it, and then press H, and that's it. And it tells me it's already assigned to changing the brush size. Do I want to change it? Yes, I do. And that's that changed. And then if I type in vertical or part of the word vertical, it shows me the option for flipping vertical, and then press V, which is my preferred shortcut. It's already assigned to the skeleton tool. I don't use that, so that's fine. I'll reassign it and then close that window. And now if I press H while the mouse pointer is in the viewer area, it'll flip horizontal, and then V flips vertically. But otherwise, the buttons at the bottom of the viewer are the ones that you want. It's Dark Snakes, or is it Tom? Well, whoever you are, Dark Snakes, Dark Tom, welcome. I'll leave you two to fight amongst yourselves for that. So we've got the movement here of the head tilting downwards and then bouncing back upwards. And as we had earlier, you've got the pair of handles. If I adjust the left handle, it adjusts the right. So if I want a sharp curve without any ease in, on the left hand side, moving into the key, you get this kind of inverse dip and a slow ease out into the next movement. We don't want that. We want a good quick adjustment of pacing and of direction. So if you right click on the key, the little orange box, and choose unlink handles, I can now click and drag the right handle separately and give a nice tight V shape to that movement. So as it moves down, it'll quickly then move in the opposite direction. So if I go back to my drawing room and replay that from the beginning, when he looks down, he looks up first, or he looks down, it bounces back. So I need to change that to be another frame or two, because that was quite quick. So let's look again. Yes, go back to the first frame. And it's worth noting that if you hit loop play, you can still click to go back to the first frame to watch it from the beginning again, to see the first part of the animation playing without waiting for it to loop through the whole of that animation. I think Dark Tom and Light Tom. but Thomas works. Okay, yeah, that's much better. So it gives it a little bounce at the bottom there. And it looks up, looks at us, and then looks the opposite direction to the left. Let me hit save. So I've just finished my cup of tea. So what I think I'll do, I'm going to take a short break now for 5 minutes, get myself a fresh drink. You chat amongst yourselves, or grab yourself a cup of tea yourself. And then we'll continue afterwards and have BB8 running back to the left, create that cycle, and then see how it looks on the shelf. So I'll see you back here in 5 minutes or so, and I'll be right back after this. Wow, that was mellow. That was much more mellow than I expected. Never mind. I hope you're still awake and that music didn't drive you to sleep. Right, I'm back. I've got a fresh cup of tea. Let's get this little fella finished. So we've got him looking around, looking to the right, ready to run. So let me come back again. And the first thing I'll do is I'll set the first start marker, so I don't forget where we began this section of the animation. And I personally really enjoy working on small sections and considering just small sections at a time, especially in something like this. So I'll consider the previous section complete, even though I may come back and adjust the timing. And then we can now just consider this next section on its own in isolation, and then we can preview that and see how that looks and keep working one piece at a time until we've got the whole thing completed. And that's where we're working in a single scene like this, because if you're working on an animation that's more complicated, then I'd always recommend creating different scenes for each section to break it down even further. But then during each of those shots, you'd still work on a small section at a time. So in the same way as before, I want him to lean backwards, pause briefly for a few frames, and then lean forwards and run back to the left hand side. And then we need to connect the end of the animation to the start, so it's facing the same direction with the same head shape in the same area. Okay, so to lean backwards, let's go forward a few frames so there's a bit of a gap from when he first turned around. I'm in animate mode. I've got rotation only turned on. I'm on the head column and I'll click to add a key again to set the start point of where we're going to do this next movement, so that during the previous frames there's no change up to this point and we can start from here. So you can now think about this entirely as its own separate piece of animation. So we'll go forward a few frames and then we'll click and drag to rotate him backwards. So he leans backwards, and again let's give it that little bounce. So let's bring back a little bit further, and if you want to, you can look at the options toolbar to see the exact value of the rotation or whatever animation you're working on, because then you can make it easier to work out the figures sometimes of these small movements. So I might decide to move this to -15 and then bounce back to -13, so you know the sort of spacing. And if that moves too far, you can change the -13 to -14, so it's closer to the previous position. So go a couple of frames forward and then bounce it back a little bit. So from sitting up, he goes backwards, just to give it a little bounce. And if you want to change that later, you're better off changing the middle extreme position rather than this stop position, because we're going to pause this for a few frames. So by hitting the key a few frames on, that adds that pause. So we lean back with a bounce back, then there's a pause, and then I want him to go forward quite quickly, and we'll adjust that timing again as we did before. And then he'll roll to the left. So a couple of frames or a frame or two before the end of the head lean, we'll start moving the body. So go to the position column, because that's the one that's for moving. Hello there, Wanted. How are you doing? How are you doing today? And then in this position body, we'll add a key to set the current position, the initial start position, to match the previous animated position. And then I think we did it over 12 frames, but we can change the timing again to click and drag the position all the way to the left. So he leans over, starts to move to the left, and when he hits the left, the head needs to come back up. So again, back to the head column, change to rotation. Let's have a look at this. So he comes over, and before he gets to the end, we'll have a couple of frames. Let's have a key on the rotation of the head, and then just after, a key where it goes a little bit overshooting again, too far, for a couple of frames, and then back to the center 0 position. So let's click and drag that end arrow to the far right for the end play marker, and then we can go to the first play marker and see how that feels to start to get a feel for how close we are. It's quite a lot of acceleration there. Let's hit the replay, the cycle play, so we can see that one a few times. Yeah, I need to sort out the timing of that movement. That's quite fast. So I need to change that at the beginning. So let's go between the movements here, press Control Insert. Let's push that forwards by a few frames, and then hit loop play again. I think we need a bit of overshoot on the body as well, so it goes too far and then sort of settles in. So it goes too far there. So let's move this all the way to the far left of the screen. Oops, undo that. On the position column. All the way to the far left of the screen, keeping his body and head visible in the camera view. And then back to the initial position, because that's where we want the animation to start. So if I go to frame 1, I can copy that first key off frame 1, Control C, and then paste that here, Control V. So now we're guaranteed that the end position will match the start position. Let's just hit save so don't lose anything. So it goes to the end, too far, and then back a little bit. Okay, let's hit loop play on that. I really need to adjust that speed and speed out to get the movement working better, because although he does want to speed out of or ease out of the first position, it goes really slowly. It doesn't match the momentum that you get from leaning forward into the movement. So I need to really sort that out. I think also when he moves his head backwards, I want him to roll backwards a little bit to add more momentum into that position there. So where he leans backwards, I'm going to bring this key back of the position. Hey there, Burger, welcome back. Long time no see. Not seen you around here for quite a while, so it's good to have you back again. Good, I'm pleased you're finding it helpful. Really am. That's exactly what we're here for. Okay, so there's the key where it starts to lean back. So that's the static position. I'm going to insert a space there so I can add another key for the position of the body moving backwards. So let's see how that goes. So he moves his head back, then the body back. So I need to move these a bit more. Let's add a space in here. So he starts to move his head to here. I need to add this key so it stays in the same place for a few frames. Let's see how far. So he leaves his head back, he pauses, and I can see exactly what's happening on these frames. So between this key at 535 and this at 544. Oh, okay, Burger. Well, it's great that you've been watching. Glad you're still hanging around. So I've set up my default interpolation, if you remember, in the preferences to be speed in, speed out, which is what I want for every single movement where there's actual movement, and then we can adjust it to finesse the timing of that movement as we've already done. But in this instance, I want him to stay still from this key to this key. And you'll notice as I click between them that the body doesn't move at all, which is the part that's got the movement attached to it. But if I click and drag between the frames, you'll see some movement between them in the middle there. And you can tell there's movement because of the arrows here on the timeline. And even though the start and end position are the same, they're still using the speed in, speed out interpolation, so they're still applying a curve between the two keys. And you'll find it does this from time to time. And what we can do to get away from that for this instance where they're both the same is if we right click on the line, the interpolation line between both keys, and it can be fiddly to get the line. There we go. You can change interpolation using these options in the center section, and you can change other things about the interpolation with the other commands in the menu. But I want constant interpolation, meaning don't change the values between the keys. So now if I click between those and drag between those two keys, there's no movement whatsoever. So that's what you need to do to change the interpolation type. Okay, so he moves his head back, he rolls back a little bit. I think I want the keys to match there, so I'll hold Control and select on the two movement keys just to move them back a frame. And then he starts to go forward, but he moves forward, and there is where you want him to start moving. So I'll drag that key over. So let's see, so he moves his head, starts to move. Let's bring it back one. And then he goes zooming over there. And that's not quite done ease in and out. It's got a bit peculiar with the timing, so we can fix that up. And again, look at these arrows. You can click and drag the interpolation arrows to adjust that timing. But we'll do it through the graph editor in a second properly anyway. Gets to the end with a little bounce back. So let's just replay that to get a better feel for that movement. Let's change that end play marker to give us a pause at the end. It's not too bad for the timing. It still starts off quite slow. I want to increase that. So I'll pause that, hit save. We'll go to the animation tab. And again, we'll use the function editor. But before we do, let's choose what we want to show in the function editor. So it's the position column for altering the position. It's only the X position that we're changing. So choose X, press the button at the top right to show the graph, and then move to the right frames so I can see exactly what movement is between those frames. First thing I'll do is I'll click and drag on the frame numbers at the top and drag to the left to bring them closer together, and that'll make it easier to see more frames at once to find the movement we're working on. Also need to move upwards. We're looking at the values of 155 or thereabouts. You can see in the position column of the spreadsheet here, so I need to move upwards. But again, I'll move them closer together by clicking and dragging on the scale, and now I can drag down, and you can see the red line of its static position here in these frames. Okay. So the first position is frame 520. So let's make sure we're showing frame 520. And here's the movement that we've been talking about here. Okay, so the small roll back there, then a pause, and then a quick movement down. So let's adjust the scale again so you can see the start and end of that movement. The more you can see on the screen, the easier it is to adjust it more accurately to get a better picture for what you're trying to adjust. So let's look at the start of the movement first. So as you click in the spreadsheet area, you see this purple line showing the current frame, and you can click and drag down there to scroll through these positions. So the first roll back is fine, it's just a small movement backwards, and then we start to come forward. There's a bit of a curve here, so let's make this happen a little bit quicker by dragging that arrow back. So we start to move a little bit quicker out of the start position and go to the end movement. Here we are. You can do that, Tom. Yes, right click and choose fit to show all the keys. So let me show you that. If you right click in the graph area, you can choose fit at the bottom there. Fit shows all the keys, so it shows from frame 1 through to 6,000 or whatever. Whereas fit selection shows the selection of keys. But I keep getting that wrong personally and selecting the wrong section. So I do tend to just manually drag them around. But if you've highlighted, I think, the keys like this, then you can right click and choose fit selection, and that places all the keys in the current view scaled to show the most space they can and all the keys. So yes, they're very, very useful features. So I want to look at this curve of where he comes to the end position and then bounces back, and that's not too bad. Let me zoom out of this a little bit. There we go, so you can see them all now. So that bounce back wants to be more, I like it as a more V shape, as a more direct bounce, as though it's hit almost a solid point and then goes into the reverse direction. So I'll click and drag over that bottom node, and if I right click, I can unlink the handles. In fact, if I reset the handles first, it sets them to a default size and position, so you can see both handles. Right click and oh, they are unlinked already. I can then drag the handles independently and give them more of a V shape. So it bounces on the end and comes backwards into that. So let me zoom in to this final key as well. Again, I'll right click on it and reset the handles so you get a default size, and I can then drag it smaller. And I want a little bit of ease in because he's actually slowing down. He's bounced from the end position at the bottom here, and he's actually slowing down then into the final stop position. Save. Let's take a look at the preview for this, make sure the values are correct, which they are, and hit preview. And in this view, in my X sheet, we're showing different columns. I can hide that column, and we're showing these. That's fine. Let's check they view okay. So the body's not showing here on 568, which is strange. I'm not worried about that. Let's go back to the drawing room because that was working on here. Let me preview that, see if that works here. No, it's not showing the body. Yeah, the mouse wheel to zoom is really useful, so I do use that a lot. I'm not sure why the body's not showing. That's really strange. I've got them all previewed here. I've got the drawing here clearly, as we can see. Just hit play and see what happens. So the body's not showing. It's an interesting one. What am I missing? Ah, it's the... Yes, it must be that. So at the top, the body is masked in using the mask column 5. Let's just rename that. Using the mask column. So I'm guessing it's something to do with that. If I taken it out of the schematic, yep, there's the mask. That should be sitting with the body there. So if I show the mask, it's on top of the body. Now if I preview, that should draw it correctly. And go back to the schematic. So the mask is now moving with that. And then, right, so the mask has dropped out of the mat in the FX schematic for some reason. Possibly one of those things where OpenToonz just goes peculiar and does things wrong. Let's not worry about it, we can fix that up, no problem. So the mask shouldn't be connected to the X sheet in the FX schematic. So if I click and drag over that line and press delete, it's now going to not be visible, but I can then plug it into the mat entrance of the mat node for the body, so that green circle is used as the mat to draw the body in. Maybe, Tom, maybe I need to, I'll hit save. If I restart OpenToonz, if the undo feature is going wrong, I've not clicked undo for a while, but I did earlier at some point. Maybe the undo feature and the undo stack is going wrong. So as I always say, if undo goes wrong, close down OpenToonz and start again. So I've hit save already, so the project is saved. So let me load OpenToonz again, and obviously it'll take a few minutes to load up. Yes, Burger. Really, since the new year, this year, I've been streaming almost every week. So at the minute, I'm aiming to stream once every Sunday, usually around 3 PM UK time. And I've been streaming for somewhere between either 3 to 6 hours each Sunday. I've missed a couple of Sundays and skipped a couple because of other plans. I'd skipped last weekend because I was watching the football, for instance. But if I'm busy, or if if I've got other things to do, if I need to spend time with the family, I've got other projects to work on, or I've not got time to prepare something, then I might choose to skip a stream. But this is why I suggest that people do hit the bell on YouTube. I know you're asked to do that a lot by a lot of people, but it just makes sure that you get the reminder of when I'm going to stream. And I think about half an hour before the stream, you get another reminder to let you know I'm about to go live. So it's a really handy feature that I've got on some live streamers that I follow. But otherwise, just keep an eye on your subscriptions. And I tend to try and publish the plan for the stream 24 hours in advance. So this one, yesterday about 3 or 4 o'clock, I created the stream plan in YouTube, so you would have seen it then, and that also gives you a countdown clock of how long before the stream starts. So where I say it'll be 3 or 4 o'clock UK time, wherever you are, you will then get the countdown to know it's 6 hours away, 3 hours away, 1 hour, and you get the countdown to the start of the stream. So then you know exactly when I'm about to start, wherever you are in the world. So yeah, once a week is what I aim for. And the idea behind the streams is an opportunity to encourage me to do some drawing and animation every single week. So I was finding that I was going past week after week just creating tutorials that I think you'd find useful, or answering questions via a tutorial of things people had asked me, but I wasn't actually doing any drawing or animation myself. So I created these streams and started doing them to make me do some animation, and also as a good opportunity for you to see me working with OpenToonz and Tahoma, and to be able to ask questions live about what I'm doing. So each week I try and cover a different area of the program so that you can see different parts of the program that you may not have seen before. So yeah, once a week if I can. I'll do the occasional midweek stream. I've not done too many of those, but again, I'll try and post them in advance so you know when they're coming up. Yeah, I think you could be right, Tom. When I did the move things around in the stage schematic, that also does affect the FX schematic. I'm quite happy to restart anyway, just in case. It does no harm to restart now and again. But you've got to be careful, as you say, of when you adjust columns in the stage schematic and what they do to the FX schematic. Okay, so that's there. So let me go back to the start of where those play markers are and preview. Oh, New England, okay. Nice, yeah. We've got quite a few people from the US, from the different sides, different parts, and the time zones you have confuse me, as well as the fact there's lots of my friends from India here and all over the world. So I tend just to mention UK time if you want to compare your times to that, and then apart from that, on YouTube it does show you the countdown, so you know when I should be going live. So let me just hit replay again, just so I can see this on repeat. So it's the timing and the position I want to get right here. So he leans back, there's that short pause, and then he sends his momentum forwards. That works really nicely there. The timing works quite well. He bounces off the side, he comes upright, and that is ready to go back to the very first frame at the start of the animation. So I've got one more thing to do in a second, which some of you that were here earlier will know what it is. So, but first, let me sort out the end of the animation. So when he arrives at the left-hand side of the screen, there needs to be a pause before the start of the animation again. So if I look back at frame 1, set that as the actual start marker. So it plays from frame 1. And I've noticed that he's looking to the right, so I need to flip his head back round to turn to the right, which I'll do at the end. And then there's only a few frames before he starts to move. So ideally, I'd like a bit more of a pause at the end before the beginning repeat cycle, so it doesn't continually move and there are spaces in between. So let's go to the end here. Here we are, so here's the last few frames. So he's bounced off the side of the wall and he's looking forwards. I give him a small pause and then I'll take the head and we'll have him turn around to the front again, perhaps shake his head as though he's kind of feeling dizzy, and then you can turn around to face the other way. I think that'd be quite nice. Yeah, we'll take a look at that. Question from Animation Overload even. What's your favourite thing to animate? Characters, objects, etc. Very good question. If you saw my video this week where I did a quick review of what I worked on for the first 6 months of this year, you'll have seen the short animation clip I worked on for a collaboration, for a Bugs Bunny reanimated collaboration. And the small scene I worked on had Yosemite Sam sitting on a dragon, running across the screen. The dragon stops and then he falls off, which I really enjoyed doing. And for that, I worked on that during these streams, and that was a lot of fun to do. And I loved doing that. I need to take more time, and I think I'll be doing so during these streams, you'll see. I need to take more time to work on hand-drawn animation and working on characters and feeling more comfortable drawing characters. I'd like to do that over the next sort of few months or so, towards the end of this year. Which is why some of that I drew by hand. Well, in fact, I drew it all by hand, but some of that I animated by hand, and some of it I used the plastic tool to animate, especially on the dragon. So the legs of the dragon running were hand animated, but the dragon's movement and his head bouncing and his tail moving around were all done with the plastic tool. So both were really useful features and useful tools to build the animation together. So I really enjoyed that. Really enjoyed that. And a separate part of that is using cutout animation, as we're doing here today. So they're kind of two sides of the same coin. They still give you some animated content, but you work on them in a very different way. And I like doing the cutout as we're doing here, particularly for robot characters where they haven't got organic bodies to move and flex and bend as they move around. They're quite static and solid. So cutout is perfect for them. So I like doing this, but I really enjoyed the hand animation and the plastic tool to help that hand animation for that one. So I think I'd say it's difficult to say my favourite thing. I think characters in general, but being able to animate the background objects and features still adds texture to a cartoon and adds a feeling of the environment being a solid 3D environment. So yeah, I think really characters, I'd have to say overall. But I want to take more time doing so, is what I need. And that's what these streams are about, especially in the coming weeks. I'm really looking forward to getting to those. But you'll see that as we get to it. I don't want to talk too much about that. But for those regular viewers, you know what's coming next. And I absolutely can't wait. And it's going to push me to my limit. And I'm going to do it here on the streams, right in front of you, where you can see me struggling in some parts. And hopefully learning a few things and pushing through the barriers in others. So I'm looking forward to getting to that. Berger's asking, would I ever work at an animation studio? Probably not, to be fair. What I do here on the channel and with OpenToonz is purely a hobby right now. I work full-time in another area, so I don't think I'd want to do this full-time. I think I'd possibly lose a little bit of my love for the art if this was my job day to day. Plus, working at an animation studio, you've got to work on the content that they need, their characters in their style, in their environment. I think for what I'm doing right now and the foreseeable future, I'm happy not to be in a studio. However, give it a few years and give me some more time to learn the craft. You never know, I might change my mind. So no just yet, but I wouldn't rule it out. Okay, so let's turn this guy around. So he's banged his head against the side of the shelf there. Then he comes back for a few frames. And again, because I want to just work on this one small part of the animation, I will set the start marker so I can hit replay on just this one small section to watch it working. And then we want him to turn around and shake his head a little bit. Just thinking in my own mind now, he's banged himself. I'm starting to think he should shake his head first. So in the animate tool, in the rotation option, I'm looking at the head. I'll add a key. I'm tempted to have him shake his head first. Let me bring that first play marker back. I'll delete the key I've just added. He's banged his head there. I'm thinking instead of just coming back nicely, he wants to shake it straight away. So I'm going to delete the last key. He's banged it. I'm going to rotate his head quite a long way back, and then quite a long way forward. So let's just have a little bit of a shake on that. So I've left it 3 frames apart, then I've come 2 frames apart to go from the right to the left, and each time I'm changing the rotation to be slightly less, so it's coming towards the centre, and then put it back to 0 at the end. Hit save. Let's just replay that small part. I'll move the end marker again over quite a little bit, so we've got a bit of a gap at the end. So let's hit replay. Right, I need to move the start marker back so it's really clear of the movement, but initially I saw that head wobble was far too slow, but let's just hit replay and see how that looks. So I want that a little bit quicker, I think. But the timing is changing a little bit because of the FPS can't keep up. So let's hit save so we don't lose anything, and again hit preview to view it in the preview window, and then loop play, and I'll grab my cup of tea and let's take a look. Yeah, that's far too slow. I need to change that. So let me close that and let's take a look. So it hits the wall, and then the first key was for his head slowly coming back to the right position, so that's far too slow. So let me adjust those, and I'll do it by clicking the first key that I want to move. I'll right click with the mouse hovering over the key and choose select all following keys in this column. So now all those keys here are selected, and I can click and drag to bring them back, and I'm going to move them 2 frames apart for the first one. I'll hold the control key and deselect the first, so the rest are still selected. I'll bring them back, those back to 2 frames again. So now they're all 2 frames apart here, right to the end. I think maybe we might need to move them 1 frame apart. We'll see how that goes. But that's a little bit of a change for that slow introduction that we had before. So I'll hit save. I'll bring the end marker back because that was quite slow. And then hit save again and preview to see how that looks. And then loop play. That's better. So it's quicker. And you can see a slight change in the play and the movement. I think that's purely because of the pacing through OpenToonz trying to keep the right frames per second. So let it go a few times and you'll see the real timing. Yeah, I think that's okay. I'm going to leave that exactly like that right now. Then give it a small pause, and then I want his head to turn around back to, I need to face the right hand side. So again, I'll highlight, is it 5 frames? I've got 5 different drawings. I'm on drawing number 6 because it's pointing to the side, and I want drawing number 5 next. So I'll press Q to go backwards through the level strip. That shows drawing 5 in that block. Then I'll highlight all but the first frame, press Q again, shows drawing 4, highlight all but the first, press Q, it shows 3, highlight 2 frames, press Q, it shows 1, and then Q on the final drawing, and it shows just drawing number 1. So that's his head turning. So he turns to face us. I think I want a small head turn again, as we had earlier. So I'll add a key on the final drawing. I'm on rotation mode. I'll go forward a few frames, rotate him around. Let's move that end marker. So he turns, rotates, pauses for a second, and then add a key. We'll bring him back up to the center by going to the options box at the top and tapping 0, pressing enter. So there's a pause, and then he goes back up, and then while he comes back up, I might have him rotate back to the side. Let me try that. I might change my mind about that dual action in there. So again, let's highlight 5 drawings, and I'll press W to go to drawing 2. In fact, before I do, I'm going to do that and press save. Because I need to flip inside with the animation keys, let me have a look and a think about this. So he looks, I'm going to move that timing of the head tilt to the right a little bit. So he looks up, does a head tilt. I want more of a pause, so between those keys I'll press Control Insert, just to give him a little bit of time after he's tilted. He looks up, and then let me do it afterwards. So okay, we're looking up here, On this frame, I'm going to go to the animation tool option scale, go into the H box that's already on -100% and press enter to set a key at that point, which gives me a start position to move from. The next frame, I'm then going to go into the H box and type 100 and press enter, and now I've got a key of them facing the opposite direction. So if I go between those two frames, you can see the flipping, and you can also see the drawing changing slightly, but again it's not going to be too noticeable. So I'll hit save on there, and then at the point where he turns, that's where I'll change the drawings. So let me highlight a block. We're on drawing number 1, and I want to increase up 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So I'll press the W key to move forwards, and I'll change the drawings in that block to drawing 2. Then I'll highlight all but that first drawing and press W, so I can see drawing 3, all but drawing 3, it goes to 4, all but drawing 4 goes to 5, and the final one to drawing 6. And on to remain at drawing 6, so I'll highlight all of those drawing number 1 frames, and then I'll press Q to come backwards through the cycle, which on the cycle of the level drawings goes straight to drawing number 6. So let's just see how that looks here, where his head comes back up and then he immediately starts to turn to face the right. So the question is that 2 separate movements, where his head comes up and then turns, or should it come up as he's turning to face the right direction? I quite like the thought of mixing them together to give me a joint movement between the two. But it's also easier having separate keys on the timeline for the different movements. So let me remove one of these keys to move them closer together. Okay. And then I'll play this and see how it looks all together. So hit save, and then we'll hit preview and loop play. Right, I've not put his head up. That's happening quite quickly. So I'm just going to press Control Insert to space out the turning of the head to the centre. His head tilt, I want to be slower. And then I'm going to lift his head up next, so let's go back to rotation. Set a key for that rotation value, and then set a key at 0 for the next value, so his head will hopefully come back up, and then he turns around. So let me extend the spacing before he puts his head back up again. Just by a little bit, head up, and turn. I'm going to change that. I do want the head to turn, I think, as his head lifts, so I can mix those two animation pieces together. So I can simply click and drag over the drawings to highlight a bunch of them, then bringing the drag handle back will bring those drawings back without affecting the keys. So you can see here on drawing 1, and then the head starts to lift up as the head turn happens, but I need to set the H horizontal scale to flip the head at the right time. And this is where having keys in different columns really helps. So if I had the rotation in one column and then the head direction in another, you could more easily see which way he's facing and adjust the timing of those two independently directly on the timeline. And you can change the timing in the function editor. And being as I've not shown that yet, let's do that right now. So if we go to the animation tab, we can see the function editor here. Let's find the right frame for the head. So if we look at the head column here, we want to look at the rotation details and the scale H, which is the head flipping to face left and right. So if I drag the scroll bar down towards the end and then come backwards to find it. So we're going to position 100. Let's see where we are here. Right, so he looks downwards, has a pause, and then here's where we need the change. So let's see what we've got. So he starts to move upwards from frame 614, but then the flip happens down here on 621. So let's see. So he starts to move, and then that's where he actually turns there. So frame 616 is where you want the flip to happen. So you can click and drag the little bar to the left hand side of those numbers to bring that one upwards, and then click the 100 to go onto frame 616. So on 615 it's facing one direction, and 616 it's flipped, so that when the drawings continue to show, he faces to the right and the rotation continues. So again, on frame 621, I will overshoot the rotation a little bit, move a couple of frames, and set the rotation back to 0 there. So as he looks up, he goes too far and bounces back. I think I started the flip one frame too soon, so let's bring those both down. No, that is correct. Put that back. Okay, back to the drawing room. Hit save, and let's do the preview on that and see how that looks. Hit loop play again so we can watch it a few times. It's not too bad. Again, this is a very small animation in the background, so I don't really want to spend too long on it, but the timing is reasonable there. It's quite fast. So let's slow that down of the timing of the movement at the end. So let's go back a little bit. So his head rattles. Give him a bit more pause here. So again, pressing Control Insert, and if you're new here or didn't see the discussion at the start of the stream, Control Insert is the option Insert Frame in the X Sheet menu, and I added my own keyboard shortcut to it, and this lets me move the drawings and the keys on the timeline for all the columns to extend them to make things happen slower, or to bring them closer with the Remove Frame option so it happens quicker. So I can go in between a movement where nothing's happening and tap Control Insert a few times, and the keys and the drawings all go to the right, and the keys stay with the drawings, so it doesn't affect that timing. It just gives me a longer gap here before the movement happens. So he turns around. I'm going to have a bit more of a pause there before he tilts his head, and then a bit more of a pause again before he puts his head straight, looks back round. Let's hit save, and then I want him to stay still for a number of frames, a second or so, and then it'll loop back to the start of the animation. So I extended my frames earlier, extended the drawings to last for a long time. So what's the easiest way to cut off those drawings to end the animation? So the last part of the action is on frame 643. And if I wanted to have the drawings ended, say 1 second later, you can look at these blue lines on the timeline, and they are spaced every quarter of a second. So 4 of them is 1 second. So from here we go 1, 2, 3, 4. That's 1 second. 1, 2 is a half. So a second and a half I'll do, just for getting a feel for some timing. And if I click and drag over the frames, the drawings in the following frame to highlight them, and then press delete, they disappear. And then I can click on the bar at the top of the next block, and that highlights the whole block. So I've not got to drag over all the frames. and then press delete. I'll do the same on the second block, click it, press delete, and the same on the third. And then I can click in the timeline at the top where the frame numbers are, right click on there and choose set stop marker. So that'll end the animation on frame 6, 7, 8. And then go to the beginning, right click on frame 1 at the top in the timeline and press set start. So now the markers cover the whole length of the animation. So if I go towards the end of the animation here, so where there's still some movement, and press loop play, he'll start looking forwards, it'll go back to the start of the animation, and then he's in the same position. So let's click that again, loop play, and he'll sit up straight, it pauses, and then he goes back to the start and starts his next part of the movement. So I think I will extend the length of that pause because he moves quite quickly at the very start of the animation. And I'll do that by clicking anywhere in any frame towards the end, give myself some space, and then pressing Control and Insert. Just to add in a bit of timing, Control Delete to reduce that timing, and then I click and drag on the handle to move the length of the animation to the end there to play. So just one thing left to do before we render out the animation. First, let's have a cup of tea. So I mentioned earlier how we can't change the rotation of the body to make the body spin around as he moves. So what I did instead was I did the rotation using the auto in between tool in the actual drawings themselves to show the rotation happening. And they are a cycle that I can play all 12 drawings in a row and you'll see the movement. And you can play them at different paces to show them on 1s or 2s or 3s even, to move at a different pace, but I'll show them on 1s and you should still get the feeling of the movement. So we need to find out where BB8 is moving to the sides, and I need to show those 12 drawings to show that movement. So if I click and drag on the slider bar below the viewer, I can more easily find that part of the animation, because this whole length of the bar is the full length of the animation. However many frames that is, it's always contained in that bar. So if I click and drag on that, he'll do his thing, and at the point where he starts to move, there, I can then find out where he's actually moving. We can actually see that because I added the position of him in a separate column called position. So you can see it's between the keys on frame 394 and 406, and he just stops, and then there's another movement back to the left towards the end. So between those frames here, as soon as he starts to move, so from 395 through to 405, I want to show those 12 drawings. And because there are 12 drawings, I think it'd be better and simpler if I could have him moving in exactly 12 frames. So it shows one new drawing for each piece of the movement, and it ends on the first drawing, drawing number 1, ready for being static. So I've not got to change the drawings later on down in the animation. I only need to change them in this movement part. So let me highlight 12, I think that's 12 drawings. And again, I use the keyboard shortcut to do the drawing replacement, and they're all currently drawing 1. So I've highlighted them all, and I'll press the W key to choose the next drawing in the level strip, and you'll see him rotate. And then I'll highlight all but the first drawing again, and I'll press W, which will show drawing 3. I'll keep doing the same to show each of the drawings in order up to 12. And if I actually zoom in to make this larger, so it'll move the keys out of the way a little bit, 10, 11, and that is 12, and then it should be back to drawing 1 again. So I'll highlight those last 2 drawings and bring them round back to drawing 1. So let's see. So it starts off here, he leans forward, starts to turn, they rotate round, and then he stops. He has got a skid there, so the keys are one frame further apart, because you see this skid, which I don't want. So I need to bring back the keys so they end on, I was going to say end on drawing 12. That's because I've got drawing 12 here, and that should be drawing 1. So we're going to highlight those two and press W, so they're drawing 1. There we go. So it goes from drawing 12 to drawing 1 and then stays static. Exactly right, Tom. Let me hit save. If I go back to frame 1, so at the very beginning I created a new vector level, didn't bother naming it, left it level name G, but you might choose to level it just as parent or animate or something that makes sense. So if you ever look at the levels on disk or you're trying to find your drawings, you'll know this isn't it. This is kind of a positional temporary drawing. So create it a new level in a separate column, and then that column is just parented on the schematic, the stage schematic here. It's called position. So if I move position, it'll move the body. By moving the body, that moves the head. So yeah, it's just there, and you only need to have one drawing in that column to make the column active. You don't need to extend the drawing for the rest of the column during the animation, because there's nothing being shown, but it is a valid column because it has a drawing in it. So you can't have an empty column with nothing in it. You need at least one drawing from a level. Absolutely, any of the 3 level types, whatever you choose. You can, if you want to, you could draw in it. If you're choosing to use a vector level, you might want to move outside the camera area, and using the brush you might want to draw a marker of some sort, either write the word position or draw an image, you know, a box or a handle or some arrows, just to give you an indication of what that contains, especially if you're going to break down your animation with the Animate tool into multiple columns, which I've done before, and it's really useful to do. So you might have one column for the position, where something literally moves around your animation, a second column for rotation, again so you can see the keys in separate columns on the timeline to adjust them, and a third one maybe for the plastic tool, and a fourth one for effects. So if you've got an earthquake or it's a car that's running, it can use a vibration, but only during a small period on the column. So that kind of thing is useful for separate columns. So if I go back to the next movement here, okay, there we are. So here he rotates, moves over, and then stops. There always is this issue with the speed of rotation compared to the position. So because the rotation is in the drawings, there's no ease in and ease out, whereas there is a slowdown on the position, so you get a little bit of skidding on the floor, which is kind of okay-ish for this particular character, because if you see BB8 in the films, he does skid sometimes as he's building up his acceleration and slowing down. So that's okay. Again, the animation is very small on the screen, so I'm not too concerned, but I've got roughly the movement happening in there. So if we go to find the end piece of movement, which is towards the very end here, here we go, from 546 he starts to move. So again, I want to take 12 frames. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I'll adjust the keys in a minute for the position. Yes, it does. Yeah, you need to leave the column on so the animation is affected by those keys. And of course, because you could choose to, if I turn that off for the render and for the preview, if I look through these, sorry, I misspoke then. If the column is turned off, but you have a drawing in there, the keys still affect the other columns. So the position keys still affect it, but you won't see any drawing that you've drawn in that column. But if you have a play, like everything I say, have a play yourself, see how it works for you, but definitely try parenting in different columns. I did make a video about 1,000 years ago, at the start of the the start of the inception for the channel, to talk about multiple columns for adjusting the camera, because in the early days of OpenToonz the camera column wasn't on the timeline or X sheet, or at least the keys for the camera weren't shown on the timeline or X sheet. So to see the keys you had to create a dummy column, but also that means and leads you into creating multiple columns again for different types of movement, which I did in that video. And I used a clip from an audio clip from Dumb and Dumber, I believe, to show the car that they're travelling in bouncing up and down as they're moving, but also the camera moved between the two different characters in there. But that's on an early video in the channel. I don't know how how good the video is, but it shows definitely the idea behind it. No, you should be able to, by rights, if you turn off the rendering for that column, the animation for that column shouldn't be included. And to me that feels like a bug that ought to be fixed, because really the preview and the eyeball isn't just about what you see from that's being drawn in that column, it's what you see that's being affected by that column, including columns using the schematic where they're layered on top of each other. So you should be able to turn it off with that, I think. I think it would make more sense to do so. Thank you, Maria. It was such a long time ago, and it was very much the early days of creating videos and editing. But when I discovered it, I was really excited to get that information out for you to see. And as I say, to layer them, that one column can have one type of movement, a different column have a different type of movement, I think is just really useful. Okay, so let's adjust these drawings. 5, 4, 6. So 5, 4, 7 is where he first starts to move. So let me select 12 drawings. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So yeah, do experiment with it and see how it works for you. Because having a single key shown on the timeline doesn't quite cover what you need. It'd be nice if you could almost expand that column to show the keys separately in there, almost like inserting the function editor directly in the timeline. So as well as seeing child columns in their parenting on the schematic shown on the timeline as sub rows in there, if you could see the animation keys shown as sub rows, and each row was each set of keys, so you'd have the X, then the Y, then the rotation, I think that'd be really useful. But it would also be quite messy and I think a bit of a pipe dream. So either way, use the columns for different types of keys, really useful. Give it a go, see if it helps you. So that's drawing 1. I'm going to press W key to set those to drawing 2, highlight all but drawing 2 to go to 3, all but drawing 3, press W to 4, all but 4 to 5, and so on all the way through to showing that cycle. And then that should be back to 1. So the animation keys I need to adjust here. Yeah, there we go. So it's moved and then he bangs and looks up. Right, so let's start bringing some of these keys back. So if I highlight in the middle, I can use my shortcut of Control and Delete just to bring those back that we've got so far. I'll hit save so I don't forget. Yes, exactly like After Effects. Yeah, I think that'd be really useful, and it would prevent having to create multiple columns. It'd make things a lot easier, I think, but hey ho. Okay. So I've also got his head lifting upwards. I want that to happen really here at the end of the position. So let me bring the position 2 keys back. So there. So he hits the end as he starts moving, and then he comes back. So I want to also come back a drawing. So what I can do is I can select those keys to move them forwards. I can change this number 1 key. In fact, let me undo a couple of these movements to start back where I was. That's fine. So it goes 12, 1, and now I can go to 2, then back to 1. So if I bring the movement drawings back here, so where bumps on the wall can be 2, so he hits the side, and now I've got a rotation back, here. There'll be a small skid, but let's see how that looks. And that's how I want his head to come back at the same point. So let's look at these keys on the head column for the rotation. So it's moving forward with his head down. That's where he hits the wall. So I want him to come back quite quickly with his head. So let's select these keys from here onwards on the head column. Right click, select following keys on this column. I can click and drag those all the way back to here, so it's a quicker flip back of the head. So he hits it and goes boink, and his head comes back in one frame as he rolls back, and then he does the head wobble. Let's come back here and then hit play and see how that looks. Let's do it again, come back here and hit play. Good, I like that. Okay, so that's the movement of the rotation of the body. That is all of the movement, including rolling around and looking around and moving his head. So I think it's time to render this. So I'll render this out. Okay, so up to frame 712, set a stop marker there so we don't forget. And the start marker is on frame 1. So hit save. We'll go to the output settings, change the frames from 1 to 712. We'll leave the shrink as 3, so it's the correct size. I'll leave it as a GIF, and we'll give this a name, and it has to be different to the last BB8 because that's already shown in OBS. So let me look at the outputs that we've currently got. So this should be called BB8 pacing, because it's pacing from left to right. And hit render. And while I'm here, let me delete some of these temporary renders that I've already done. And that's going reasonably quickly, and part of that is because it's a simple drawing, a simple sort of animation, and the shrink value of 3, making it a smaller animation, also really picks up the pace for rendering out. I love the way it goes quickly from frame 1 through to the end at 99%, and that last 1% takes ages as it collects those drawings together. But that's really good. That's rendered out now. So I'm going to add it directly into here. So let me change back to the study room. As if by magic, here we are. Let me go back to my test. I'm going to pause that and change the file to go to my BB8 pacing GIF. Make sure I've got the options ticked to loop it. I'll press OK. And there he is. Let me just pause that. If I hide the old BB8, here's my BB8 here. Let me move him a little bit to the right because he's going to go to the very left hand side of the shelf to bump his head. Let's just shuffle him over. I won't adjust the size of that just yet. So let me hit play and then click away, and let's see how that looks. So he's quite big there, quite tall, so I might shrink him down. Yeah, I definitely need to shrink him down, but the width is quite nice, so I'll shrink him down a little bit. So there's quite a lot happening on the right I need to slow down, so I'll add some spacing in that, and we'll do that in a second today, and I might do some more next week, but I'll do some in a second. Just wanted to answer a couple of questions we've got up here. So Jim P's asking, why do Dave's renders appear so fast? For a couple of reasons. One is because they're quite short clips, so his clips are sometimes 20 frames or 40 frames long. This one here is 700 frames, so it's quite a long clip. And even though his are full screen and mine is only like a small character on screen, and I shrink him by 3, because he's got so few frames, it's quite quick there. And also because he renders to JPEG files now rather than PNGs. I think that makes them appear much quicker. He changed to JPEG accidentally one day and noticed that they were rendering faster, and they look just as good. So he's stuck with using JPEG ever since. And the final reason I was thinking of for the speed is a lot of his frames are identical. So I don't know if OpenToonz realizes that and then chooses to not try to render it. So if you got your character staying still for the first 6 frames, then he changes, he has quite limited animation, so he changes a couple of frames forward and stays there for another 6 frames. That's only 3 drawings shown for like a dozen frames. So maybe it only renders 3 drawings and just assembles them into the, I was about to say assembles them to the video file, but he doesn't actually do that. He doesn't render to a video file, only to images. So normally, like here I've created a GIF, it renders out the images separately to files on disk, which you can see in the cache folder, and then assembles them into a video file, and that's that end rendering time at 99% where it assembles them together. So he only renders out to images, so that will be a lot quicker. The armchair is very comfortable. Thank you very much. I don't often sit back all the way back in it. I'm always hunched forward, but it really is. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Dark Snakes, how do you copy paste without instant? I'm not quite sure what you mean. If you, I think you're asking how do I manage to put the video clip into the background here. Is that kind of what you're asking? Just going back to Maria, the width is nice, thank you. Yes, he is quite large, and I do want to put hats and things on him. I like the fact he bumps into the shelf on the left. So if I shrink him, but only shrink him from the right, so he doesn't go as far on the right. How's that? Because he stops before the end. Let's see how he is back on the left. I quite like that little bump on the left. But I do want to slow him down. You know what I might do? Yeah, I need to add some pausing in between some of those movements on the right. On the left it's quite steady, that I did last time. But when he goes over to the right, once he's there, he quite quickly goes through his little set. Yeah, he really needs to slow down before he comes back again. He's still quite tall, isn't he? So I think I need to if I reduce him in the original, that'll give him more space to move for when I reduce him here. Is that right? Trying to get the right way to reduce him. If I reduce him in the original and want him this size, it'll enlarge him. So I need to be careful on which way round I do that. It's not a bad first effort though. That's not a bad first effort at all. So let's go back here to the drawing room. And if I get rid of this. Yeah, if I want to have him smaller on screen, on the shelf, and move further to the right, I think what I need to do is to reduce his height here. So if I go to scale, its current scale is 53.99. So I can make it smaller. If I click and drag on the label at the top bar here, I can make him slightly smaller. This is save. So I can reduce some more and he should fall. Let's see how he looks when I render this. Let me do that timing I was talking about earlier. So to do that, I'm going to reduce the timeline scale by dragging the slide at the bottom, because I don't need to see the drawing numbers. The keys themselves, I don't need to see a nice picture of a key. Seeing a diamond on the timeline is perfectly clear to know where the animation keys are for what I'm trying to do here. I can see Vivid 807 is with us. Hello there. Yes, to move the two columns together, Dark Snakes. To move them together, I've used the schematic to attach them together. So I can move one column and the other column moves as well. That's what this position column is for on here. So because I've zoomed out, I can also move along the timeline a lot easier. So one thing I need to do, I can see the scale altering. I only want the scale to be set once. So in the animation room, if I just show the global scale for the position column, and again this would be a good reason to have the scale in its own column, because as I've added keys for movement in this column, it's added keys for the scale as well. So I've got the initial scale key of 45 here, and then further down somewhere there'll be another key added. There we are. There's the key on 394. So if I click on there and tap delete, get rid of that key. But there's another one at the bottom, and I think I saw another one. There we are, slightly higher up. So with those deleted, I've got only one scale value set on frame 1, and because that's in the column with the position, it might add more keys later, but because there's only one key set, it'll add the same value to those, so that's fine as it is right now. But we might want to have different scales at different times and different times to the movement. So if I had the scale in its own column and the position in its own column, I could easily adjust those keys totally independently. Okay, so that's now the scale working. I'm looking for the keys now. If I scroll over, here we are. So there's the keys in this bottom position column where he goes to the right. And I want to adjust the timing after that to slow things down quite a lot, because they happen quite quickly. So he goes to the right and then he looks up. So with my hand on my keyboard for control insert, I'll insert a few frames before he looks up. Once he looks up, I'll insert a few more. Then he looks down, there's a small bounce, and then he looks up. So again, just slow it down a little bit. We'll add a few frames. This is background after all. Then he looks up, he pauses, then he turns around to us, then he turns around the rest of the way. So again, I'm just going to insert a bunch of frames between the look up and the turn, and he looks to the left, and then he leans back and tries to run forward. So before he does any of that, I want him just to look to the left and sit there for a second and wait. and then he runs to the left, bounces off the side, his head wobbles. So again, I'll add a bit of a gap after the head wobble. And you can see the change in drawings with these black circles, even though we're zoomed out quite a long way. So you can tell the difference between the keys connected by the white lines and the drawing changes on the black circles. So I can see that's where he clearly turns around to face us. There he looks down sympathetically. So again, let's just slow it down by dropping a couple of frames in before the head tilt. A couple for the head tilt to slow that down. A few after the head tilt for the pause. And then his head comes back and he rotates back to the right. And then there's a long pause to the end until the next movement. So let's drag the end marker to that last drawing here. And that's frame 7, I think 722. I need to zoom in a little bit, it'll be easier to see. No, I'm not on the frame yet. 790. So hit save, and I'll render this out, and that'll be this small part of the animation done if the scale is right. So let me check the output settings. It's already updated the end frame, which is good. I'll leave the name the same and hit render. And because I changed an option in OBS to, I think it was called unload or something, so it shouldn't lock that file, so it should be able to render out to the same file on disk rather than creating a temporary file as I did last time. But I'll find out in a second. Yep, so that's replaced the same file name on disk. So I shouldn't need to change anything, but just switch to the study room when this is done. That's all rendered out. So let's take a look. So there he is, looking a little smaller still. Let's look at him over here. I think I still quite like him to go further to the right, so I need to adjust the scale and pacing a little bit on that. So I'll do that, but I'll do that offline rather than messing today. He's too high on the screen, so that's the first thing I know I need to change. So let me select him. If I can just find him with a mouse pointer, there we are. So to place him downwards in the middle of the shelf there. There he is, that's much better. Yeah, so I need to, it doesn't go far enough across the shelf, I think. It needs to go further that way, to our right. But yeah, I think overall that's not too bad. That fits okay. And I don't think it's too distracting. It shouldn't be. It's just background things. If I fill the shelves full of dancing, moving characters, it's going to get very distracting. And I may well move one of the skelly bobs elsewhere and just have one up there maybe. I'm not too sure about that. Yeah, we'll take a look at that another time. I have got one more shelf at the very top that we can put some character on. I'm not sure if I've got a character done yet for up there, or if we'll create a new one sometime. Or if I decide to move Hypnotoad up there or something. But Hypnotoad and President Nixon are both at the right angle to fit on that bottom shelf, I think. I think they fit just nice just there. So I don't know if they can move, but yeah, I'm happy with that. That's been a good day, I think, to work through that. And I'm going to leave it there for today, I think. Unless you've got any last questions, then do send them through before we disappear. So I should be here again, I believe, the same time next week. Today I actually started an hour later than I planned. I did have to push it back because of being busier early in the day. So I pushed it back to 4 PM UK time instead of 3 PM. Next Sunday, I can't remember offhand now if I've got any plans. Now that the whole COVID restrictions have been relaxed a little bit more, at the weekends I'm starting to find myself with a few more plans. But hopefully next weekend one day. So do keep an eye on the YouTube site for when the next video's going to tell you when we're going to be streaming, and over on the Discord where I'll talk about it there and let you know where you can find us. So let me just nip back to the oh, little BB8, just watching him whistle past there. Nip back to the drawing room and let you know that I will see you next Sunday or next weekend for another stream. So I hope you can join me then. But until then, I'll see you next week. And that's a Darren Tea. Have you always wanted to animate but didn't know how to start, and software seemed expensive and difficult to use? Well, with OpenToonz, it's free, powerful, and once you know how, it's easy to use. And it's my mission to get you animating with it today. Hi, my name's Darren, and I've been teaching OpenToonz for the past 3 years, showing thousands of students just like you how easy it is to animate with, and cutting through the jargon to show that anyone can animate with it. And by the end of the course, you'll be able to animate traditionally using OpenToonz. And the course is designed for students brand new to OpenToonz, as well as those new to animation. So take a look at the free lessons I've offered below, and then why not sign up and join me animating traditionally with OpenToonz.